Hello, hello. It's all right. I think we're live on the WEBSTER Report. Just looking for a bit of confirmation. It's not the best of computers, this that I'm on, so but the important thing is that I've got my guest, and we're going to be getting into this. It's not a light subject. It's not a light subject, but and for whatever, you know, I've just been telling my guest that I've been not attacked, but I've been contacted a lot this week because of who I'm getting on and who they're linked with and how much they are shills and this, that, and the other. And do you know what? I get sick of it, because the best thing to do is to talk to everybody and get all the information together, because at this moment in time, light is being shed on lies, and lies is falling out everywhere. I'm going to give as many people as they want to come and talk to me about their subjects as much rope as they want, and they'll either hang themselves with it or they'll make a hammock and laugh at everybody else. But this subject has never been talked about constantly like this. It is being now, that people are now openly discussing it. Could it be possible? That's all you need. You need a could it. You can't say that is what's happening, because nobody knows the amount of lies that's gone around this place. You've just got to have an open mind and critically think, and you've got to talk to people, let them tell the stories, and we'll take it from there. Without any further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest, Alan Merritt, who I was going to try and introduce, but I've decided that Alan's a lot more eloquent about his own life story than I am. So, Alan, welcome to the WEBSTER Report.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure.
No, I'm pleased to hear about stuff like this. You know, you can only try and imagine what you might have been through. Some of the stories that I've read about what you've written, about what many others have written. I'm in touch with a lady called Mandy, who's up in Nottingham. She set up a child's sexual abuse survivors group there. This is what we need to talk about with all the grooming gangs and all the cover-ups. How would you not want to talk about this?
It's like my friend John Wedger that I've worked with for 2 years now, trying to get my story out there, doing all these podcasts and everything else. John has this saying, he says, if you say nothing, nothing gets done. And it's very, very true. And his cliches and some of his sayings are absolutely superb, like the diamond in the shoebox and picking the lower hanging fruit because it's easy to pick, like child abuse. And, you know, I was in a very, very dark place. I mean, I was abused by my own father at a very, very young age. And I was in and out of children's homes from the age of 2. So if you can't really, in my day, it was called respite care.
Yes.
You kind of like, my mum and dad were both alcoholics.
Still exists. It still exists, respite.
Does it?
Yes, yes.
And if they deem you fit enough to go back home, or if they've made changes as social services require, they allow you to go back home. If they feel there's a lapse in this or something happens, then they go and put you back in childcare again. I was in 5 children's homes before I went to Beecholme. Kind of like holding pens were a few of them, like Elsfield House in Wandsworth. And it was strange that I ended up in Elsfield House with Hammersby in my birth borough. And I also went to another holding pen called Oakley Street. And you only remember between the ages of 2 and 6, you only remember bits and pieces. It's very, very hard to imagine and go through what you go through and kind of think of what you was doing when you was at home and how your father used to beat you with a leather belt and really, really punish me. And I was getting hit with a leather belt at the age of 4 or 5, and that's a very, very young age to be start your abusive life, and just tossed around like he was a piece of meat. It was really horrible. In my day, we used to call them CCOs, childcare officers. Never trusted none of them. Hated them. Absolutely hated them. We had a good one to start off with, and it was like the whole world fell in. And, you know, before you knew it, you was getting like, you was some sort of case file. And you'll be getting a different CCO every month. And they'd ask you to confide in them. Well, what is the point in confiding in somebody that you're going to find you're going to have to do it again in a month's time?
Yes.
And I used to get punished because I didn't want to talk to them in the end. And it was an abusive environment that I was in anyway in Beecholme. But I was the youngest of four. I was born on the 25th of March 1955 in Hammersmith Hospital, which is Beecholme Road, opposite with Scraps in West London. And I was born the youngest of four, two sisters and another brother. There was a year difference between me and Frank, my brother. There was 3 years difference between me and Margie, my middle sister, and 5 years difference between me and my oldest sister, Anne. And because Anne looked after us a lot as youngsters and children when we was young, I used to call her Mummy Anne. Because that 5 year difference, I don't know, when you're hypothetically 4 and your sister's 9, there's a big difference. And she, because she didn't have no alternative. The first house, I think we were in Mardale Street, which is just off the Goldhawk Road in Shepherd's Bush. Our mum left the iron on when she was in the pub, the Wheatsheaf pub, or was it the Flock and Shepherd on the Goldhawk Road? I think that pub's still there today.
Okay.
And she left the iron on while we was in the pub. We was running around the streets, even at a young age of that. And the house got burned down. And I always remember that house because I remember that young age. I had this tortoise that I pulled. You pulled it on a string and its front legs moved backwards and forward as you pulled it. I always remember that. But I remember him burn, and it was like it was handicapped because the burn damage had made him so he couldn't move properly. And I always remember that, and I remember the plates being charred and very, very black. And we moved from there to Stowe Road, and I always remember in Stowe Road we had this table in the front room. We had a front room and only 2 bedrooms. It was kind of like an old woman lived upstairs in the top flat. We lived in the middle flat, and we had the middle and the basement. Yeah. And the bathroom and toilet was downstairs in the basement. And no one would go down to the basement at night because of the rats. We had these rats, the biggest rats you've seen in your life. They were like sewer rats. Yeah. They were huge, the size of Yorkshire Terriers. They were massive. And the squealing and the noise they used to make at night was horrific. So none of us, the 4 of us, my 2 sisters and my brother, myself, we shared one of the bedrooms and my mum and dad shared the other. So we used to piss in buckets. If we wanted to go to the toilet, we had to go to the toilet in a bucket. We did have no heating in the flat. We had an open coal fire. We used to get warm by that. And I said we had this big kitchen table. My mum put a cardboard box under the kitchen table, which I used to hide in. So when my dad used to come back in his drunken stupor, he'd take it out on me. I don't know why, but for some reason I got it really, really badly. And I got abused. I got his leather belt. I always remember we used to go downstairs out the backyard and climb this wall, which is about 15-foot high, shimmy along the top of the wall and go to the local tip. In them days in London, you used to take your household rubbish and put it in these concrete walls, which were the tips. And then the local council would come and take them, and that was our playground. And I remember throwing something one day and splitting some kid's head open with throwing a lump of concrete or something. Only a young age. And I was hiding down the road and I saw him with his dad. I was too frightened to go home because I knew what my dad was going to do to me. Yeah. And I saw the father taking his son down the road, his big bandage around his head and everything. And I knew I was going to get beaten, and did I get beaten when I tried to sneak back in downstairs and creep up the stairs, but he caught me and gave me the idea of my life. And them days we used to live on like bread and dripping. Our luxury was pie and mash. Pie and mash and liquor. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Yeah. It was like poor man's food. And we used to have a television where you used to put sixpences to work the television. Rediffusion, remember the Star, and the sixpences worked the telly, and every now and then we got a refund, and that was kind of like their piss up money.
Fucking hell, you're making me feel old here, Alan. You're making me feel old. I can remember all that.
I'm sorry, mate. Sorry, mate. Yeah, I always remember the lard jars, the round jars they used to put the lard in, and they used to scrape it off and put it on the bread. And sorry, mate. And
no, I was a bit beyond that. That was my mum and dad's era, but I just got beyond that. But I remember all that, the Rediffusion, everything. You know, the TV remotes are about that big. All this kind of stuff.
Well, we didn't have remotes in them days. It was all manual telly. You had to get up and push a button. I mean, it's black and white as well.
Yeah.
And they were huge sets with bulbs in them, like that worked the sets. And I think you got warmer off the television than you did off the fire. It was coal fire. I always remember my mum rubbing her cheeks of her arse against the fire. She had this habit of rubbing her cheeks of her arse, and I said, "Do you have to?" And it was a very, very small fire. And I remember one day the woman upstairs getting knocked down the stairs. One day, one of these king rats came running down from upstairs, and I thought, "You're not going to eat me." And I tried to scarp her as quick as I could get out of the way of it, because at night it was petrifying. You pull the covers over your head because you could hear them screeching and scratching at the door to try and get in. It was horrific. And we did live in squalor, and we did live in a poor environment, and we weren't well off. It was a council property anyway. And again, supervision orders were taken out of us, and we were taken to and from different children's homes and holding pens until they decided what they were going to do with us. So I remember going to various children's homes, Oakley Street. I remember with the sort of like Georgian Victorian kind of facades of the house along Albert Bridge Road, Oakley Street and Albert Bridge. And I just remember the rows of sinks, almost like a military barracks, where they were all in rows, and they were huge sinks that everything was labelled and everything was kind of like to order. And then I went to and from different children's homes, and I went from Elsford House, but I think it was only a short stay in Shirley Oaks, and then I'm sure I went on to Beecholme. But the worst part about that was I was 6 years of age, say, and I was taken before Marylebone Magistrates Court, going towards Houston on the main road there, and went before this judge, a little boy, and I'm looking up, and I didn't know what the unicorn was. I'd never seen a unicorn before. So I'm looking up, and I'm thinking, what bloody hell is this horse with this horn out his head? And I'm looking at the symbol of the lion, the crown, and the unicorn. And I'm looking up at that and looking up at this judge, little boy. And he said, "Would you like to go to the seaside, Sonny boy?" To a 6-year-old. I'd never been to the seaside. There were places near the sea, children's homes that we went to near the sea, but I don't have any recall of that. Because one of the children's homes I think I went to was in St. Leonard's. Leaps Heap or somewhere, and then another one in Camberley, Elsfield House, Oakley Street, little stint in Shirley Oaks, but a hell of a lot of children's homes. And then I went to Beecholme and sang there in a Black Maria, and this was a home. It was built in 1888, I believe it was. So it had workhouses, and it was formed for the poor from the Kensington and Chelsea area in London that used to go there. And it had its own regiment in the First World War and the Second World War. And boys not only went into care, they went off to fight for their country. And so can you imagine what kind of life they had?
Yeah.
And you don't know how far the abuse goes back. Brass bands used to strike up and used to march down the avenues. And as the brass band striked up and came to your house, you used to join the end of the queue, and off you'd go to the workhouses, whether it's the cobblers, the tailors, or whatever it was. And or unless you did in-house work. And it was. I remember getting out of the Black Maria, ushered into the processing offices, the main offices at Beecholme, because it had a clock above the office as you go in the main entrance, and always remember the clocked face. And I was processing, and I didn't know what was going on. I was more excited to see the sea than anything else. I thought I was in for a treat to see the seaside, and I just wanted to see it. That's all. Every little boy's dream. I want to see the seaside. And then I was taken down into the stores and was told to take my clothes and hand them into a box and something and put these shorts on. And I said to them, I don't want them on. I want my own clothes back. And they wouldn't let me do it. They made me put these shorts on. And everything I put on had labels in it. So we had a label in the back, you know, just like your normal label that you get in any clothes. But this was sewn in on a white label with red writing saying Beecholme. So your socks had it, your pants had it, your tops had it, your jumpers had it. Every single garment that you wore, you were labelled Beecholme. You was a Beecholme boy. You was an orphan. I'm running down the avenue after this, or trying to get to the seaside, and I'm being held back. And you'll come with me, boy. And kind of like an Oliver Saga, more boy. And then, very, very strict, very, very stern, very old. And Beecholme was lined by beech trees either side of the road that went from the bottom end to the top end. So from the offices, you had the primary school, the nursery, the library, and then the houses started. 6 in this end, 6 in that end, and they were all named after trees like laburnum, larch, ash, beech. And I was put into a house called Laburnum, and it had a yellow laburnum tree outside, and the front windows to the houses, the kitchen windows, used to face each other, so they were kind of turned inside out on themselves, the houses. And there was 24 houses in Beecholme, and as I say, they were all named after trees. And so you say a 12 up one end and 12 up the other end, the top end. Yeah. In them days, we used to call it the top end and the bottom end. Then they later on named them the avenues, the top end avenue and the bottom avenue. And we had a sick bay. There was a swimming pool. There was a primary school. There was a top field and a wood where you came to Stansted Station. And then it was where the sick bay was, where the houses ended. You had the bottom field, playing field with swings. Then you had a spinney. And then that took you down to Drift Bridge. And if you carried on going, you'd come to Epsom Downs. And
you know what, Alan? You know what? How you describe it, it should be sort of like the way you're describing it there. For a split second, it's almost like it should be where somebody who's experienced all that fear as a 6-year-old can go and be safe and see all these things. And this is how it's created, and then it's the underbelly. It's what's it's the front, and then. So sorry for interrupting.
You don't know what's coming. You don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
140 acres.
Yeah.
It was 140 acres, the plot, and very, very big. And so my first recollection, so I've got into this house called Laburnum, and looking at me, and the only way I can describe it to give you a perfect image is if you can remember Hilda Ogden out of Coronation Street.
Of course I can.
This woman, Hilda Ogden, Stan's wife. And looking at me, it's this woman with these rimmed glasses. She's sort of come down to look at me like this. And she's processing me. She's weighing me up.
Yeah.
And she pulled me into that house and she said, "Come in, boy." And she said, "My name's Auntie Grace to you. You will call me Auntie Grace. This is my assistant, Auntie Audrey." So you was in the being processed again. Then they got some children to show me around where I was going to sleep. The boys' dormitory. You're not allowed down there. That's the girls' dormitory. The bathroom upstairs you can't use. That's for staff only. You have to use the downstairs toilet or the 4 toilets outside in the cold. You have to go outside to the toilet if there. One downstairs is occupied by somebody else. Yeah. And the bathrooms were downstairs. And everything was kind of like military precision. It was almost like an army barracks in some respects. It was really, really strange. And you could have up to 20 in a house, 24 in a house. And I think one stage, Beecholme had 700 children in it.
And how many houses? How many houses?
24.
24 and 700 kids. How many in a house?
That's at one stage there was another block called Rowing at the very bottom of Beecholme, and it was like multiple. It was like a little mini mansion basically, so they could put loads of kids in. I don't know how many kids were there because that was weird. Well, I'll tell you about that. It's another story. That what happened with Rowing. They closed Rowing down, and when I was there, it was probably, I don't know how working it out, but it was in Laburnum. I would say it was about 20 kids. So on average, if you said when I was there, and we're talking about the 60s, there was probably 300 or 400 kids in Beecholme. Say if you said 30 kids times 24.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Top of my head.
I'm trying to work it out.
I was thinking of 240, but I might be wrong. Anyway, so it had its limitations numbers, but there are other properties that were in Beecholme that he used before, because there was the workhouses and there was other outlets and outbuildings and various other places. Like opposite the sick bay was this Rowing house and cottage. But they used to call them cottages: Laburnum Cottage, Larch Cottage, Ash Cottage, Beech Cottage. At my time, Laburnum was virtually the most abusive one that I was in, because they didn't think twice about slapping you. They were slap happy, or Granny Grace, as we called her.
Yeah.
The kids turned around and said to me, "Do not call her Granny Grace. She hates that." And they showed me around the rooms, the outside area where we had to go to the toilet. And the rules had been drilled into the other children anyway. So they told me to do. We had a dirty, great big kitchen table, massive kitchen table, big cookers, a boiler house. And I always remember we used to line up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we used to have this dirty, great big metal tin of malt. And they used to get a tablespoon and stick it in your gob. And I always used to think they always used to put something else in it, some sort of tablet or something like that. But I don't know what it was. But or they put it in the tea. I don't know what it was, or the juice, because we had this. There was always bits floating on it. We had this orange drink at the tea times and that, and it was like powdered orange juice. And they put it in there and added water to it, and basically that was what you had to drink. And I always remember that if you didn't eat your food, they made you eat it the next day. They put it out in front of you the next day. They used to have a thing about when you walk past them, you had to be very careful, because you had to watch them all the time, and you seemed to have eyes in the back of your head, because you didn't know if they were going to grab hold of you and pull you backwards. They had a thing about pulling you backwards, and of course you'd end up on your arse 9 times out of 10, because you was caught off balance, and slapping you as well. You used to learn to kind of skip to get out of the way of them slapping their hands, and slap happy with their hands on your little legs with shorts on. And I think that's why they put you in shorts. My legs.
It's a conditioning, isn't it? It's all about conditioning. You're wary about walking past people. You think something's going to happen, so you're always on your guard. This is about conditioning. It's the same. I mean, just contrast it now. If you look to the general public of what they're doing now, they're walking around with surgical masks on. That for the best will in the world is not going to stop a flu getting to you. You can argue that you might not spread it to somebody else, but this is about conditioning for me, Alan. It's the government guidelines. We're hearing about these guidelines. They were laws about 5-6 weeks ago, even though they've never been a law. But now Dominic Cummings has done his bit, so everybody's just gone out. And now they're going to say, oh, look at this second spike. Everybody's going to get ill. Everybody's buying into this media thing that's going to be spouted up around it. And you're giving me foundations of what has happened with the likes of Rotherham, Rochdale, everywhere. And you can see this happening from, it's almost like a supply line, isn't it? From social services through councils.
The worst part about it was the bathrooms downstairs. I remember the beatings. You used to get beaten, slapped, kicked, punched, whacked round the head, wrapped round the ear roll. I remember sitting at the dining room table one night, and I saw my sister go by, and my older sister, Mummy Ann, and she went by. And I cried my eyes out and ran from the room. And I shot outside and I put my arms around my sister and said, take me away. And I'd only just been in Beecholme. I think she heard that I was put in Laburnum, so she came to see if I was all right. And or they told her that your youngest brother was put into Laburnum. And I was hanging on to her for dear life. I wouldn't let go of my sister. And Granny Grace came out, and she turned around and said, you get off to your own house. You better get back off to your own house, and dragged me inside the house. And when I got behind the door, she gave me the biggest hiding that I ever had for leaving the dining room table. You weren't allowed to leave the dining room table unless you had permission. You had to have permission to do that. Otherwise, you got the hiding of your life. And I got really, really bad, slapped, beaten. I remember Audrey Wilson, big set Welshwoman. She was touching me up in the dormitory, in the boys' dormitory, and I slept underneath a window in the boys' dormitory. And with the street lights and the beech trees, you get a dancing pattern on the ceiling. And they used to flicker, the leaves used to flicker through the street lights. And I could see this outline of this woman, shadow. And she was touching me up in the bed and touching my genitals. And it was like kind of stroking my penis. And I could just about make her up as she went away from the house. And I've always had a thing about these shadows, because I've had nightmares about them shadows for years and years and years. But the worst part about it was that you had other boys and girls in that house, and in the boys' dormitory, you had a double bunk bed just across from me, and you had a couple of other single beds and another double bunk bed. Then you had 2 bunk beds in the partitioned areas for the boys. And when she was abusing me, Audrey Wilson, the kids used to turn their back on you and used to pretend they were sleeping facing the wall, and they didn't move. And they were so frightened of repercussions or getting caught or punished themselves. You had to endure what was ever going to happen to you, or whatever was ever going to come your way. I'd never wet the bed before. So through this, I curled up into a little ball and I pissed the bed. I'd never wet the bed before. 7 o'clock in the morning, I was still almost in that corner. I was so frightened, petrified of being touched. And all I remember just seeing a big dark shadow of a thick-set woman with the hallway light on behind her, and absolutely petrified. And she dragged me downstairs, literally dragged me down the stairs, told me to wash my sheets in the bath, said I was a dirty little boy. I got beaten and slapped and punched and Christ knows what. And the torture and the punishments that you would get were so harsh and unreal. And they come into the bathroom when you was in the bath. And I remember with me, they used to use this scrubbing brush and this red soap called carbolic soap. And they used to scrub the floors and use this carbolic soap. So they were bathing me in the bath one day with this, both of them, Audrey Wilson and Granny Grace. And she had come round, because what I'd done is I put a toothbrush between the coat lock bone thing, and I'd put a toothbrush through it to try and keep the ball bolted so you couldn't open it. And Audrey Wilson came round the other side, and she opened the bathroom windows. Get that door open now, boy. And so I had to go there, and I've got the biggest hiding of my life in the bath. They said to me, get me in the bath. There was more water on the floor than there was in the bath. I was being hit, slapped, touched in all over the place. They would touch me. They were rubbing carbolic soap in my face, in my eyes, in my mouth. Was trying to wash my hair because I was swearing my head off, and because from the attack and the bombardment, and I was red raw from the scrubbing and the slapping, and the carbolic soap, remember, burnt my skin. Yeah, really burnt my skin. It was so going on. I was crying my eyes out, and I think I ended up in my bed, and I didn't have no more tears. You know, I cried till I couldn't cry anymore. And what can you do? You couldn't say anything. You weren't allowed to say anything. You were seen and not heard. They told you little boys were seen and not heard. But the beatings carried on going on, the slappings, the punching, the kicking up the arse and all that. And then from Larch, as I started to get a little bit bigger, I went into the primary school, and we had to wear this brown uniform.
How old would you be then? How old would you be then, Alan? 7, 8?
Yeah,
Bit
probably
older?
7, and I put me into primary school, and I remember this brown uniform that we used to wear with a yellow and brown tie, and we used to have a barber used to come into Beecholme, and we used to call him Mr. Kimber was the barber, and we called him the butcher. They used to put a bowl around your head and shave around it, and that's the kind of haircut you've got. And there was nothing here, just a little bit on top, and everybody had the same haircut. It was almost like he was in a barracks. And I went there, and I had a teacher called Mr. Margates in the primary school, and my education suffered. I'm not very good at spelling or reading or writing to this day. I suffered with my education, big time. He used to come up and whack you around the head. You didn't really learn anything. You was just left there to twiddle your thumbs at a desk or play with the inkwells in the desk, and he'd whack you with the ruler. And we had a guy in a playground in a classroom across the playground called Mr. Whiteman, and he'd put his hands in your pockets and rifle through your pockets and saying, "What you got in there, then, boy?" Making out he was searching you because you had something in your pockets, but he was just feeling you up, touching you up. And Mr. Whiteman went on to abuse at Shirley Oaks. There was another children's home called Shirley Oaks, and he was abuser at Beecholme, and he went from Beecholme to Shirley Oaks. And there was a guy called Clifford Hemp. He was at Beecholme. He was an abuser at Beecholme. He went on to Shirley Oaks, and these men were found guilty, and later on that formed part of a Labour government redress scheme by Lambeth Council, and we can talk about that as we go along. Yeah. But the abuse didn't stop there, because I went later on as I was getting a bit older in the school, and you got almost immune to the slaps and the beatings. That might sound crazy.
It doesn't, Alan. I know a local lad who went through local children's homes here back at same era as you, but he went through local homes here, and he was getting all the same. I'm trying to get him to come on my podcast. He keeps saying he will, but I can't get him on there right now. He's got a lot going on. He's having a lot of hassle with police and councils because of standing up for his local community, believe it or not. The police seem to turn a blind eye to drug dealing, prostitution, all this kind of stuff, when, shall we say, they aren't locals that they're involved. That's as bluntly as I can.
This is a good point as well, because before we came on air and you started talking about like the likes of Dominic Cummings going in lockdown up and down the country. I mean, the media have made such a big thing out of this. Why aren't they talking about this poor Ellie in Borough on Furness? Why aren't they doing something about, I mean, that's kicked off big time in Borough, with people bibbing their horns and really, really kicked off. It's really making a stand now. And they're talking about locking Borough down and putting it down to COVID-19.
Exactly. But what gets me, Alan, is the COVID-19. The beauty of this is everybody keeps telling me how bad it is, and yes, it's a bad illness. I think pretty much November, December, we went through our workplace. Everybody was ill with flu. But this COVID-19, it's never been isolated. It can't be tested for, but everybody can point at COVID-19. Now, when you point at something and say that thing that you can't see, that doesn't show any symptoms but could kill you, when people start saying that, I'm looking for an emperor that hasn't got any fucking clothes on, mate, because there's something not right about all this. And the critical thinking element of people has gone. You have come, I haven't gone through, I've not walked in your shoes through that kind of background, but the background I walked through was working man's shoes. My mum and dad gave me stuff that they didn't have. My mum and dad had nothing growing up. I had 4 bikes to choose from because my mum was a self-employed businesswoman, and my dad did long distance lorry driving 6 nights out of the week. And the days where he did 6 nights on, 1 night off, 6 nights on, not 6 on and 6 off. these people were grafters, Alan. So I understand when I did tell you a bit about about bit of my background involving the banking system and stuff like that, where my mum told me to pay bills. And that was the horrible thing to do, because that's not what we're meant to do under the bills of exchange. And it was just everything, all my platforms that I built my foundation on was falling down. Now you, at this point, Alan, you're trying to build a platform. You're trying to find out who you are, where you are, what the fuck are you doing that for? Why do you do this? And then all of a sudden, that conditioning becomes normal. So
it gets worse.
Yes. Sorry, take it up from there.
It gets worse because it was almost like, the only way I can put it into in a nutshell is you almost get punch drunk.
Yeah.
You've been hit and abused so many times. It's like everyday life. It's part of your childhood. It's a part of being in harm's way.
Yeah.
You're in harm's way now. You're in harm's way big time. And this is what I've always said all along. They put me in harm's way. And because I don't know whether they felt that they couldn't hurt me anymore, Audrey Wilson and Granny Grace. Always remember the rollers in her bloody hair. Splitting image of it all often, man. They used to get a guy called Pete McTavish. Now, he run the boys. He took the boys' house in Kerrier. And he was a massive, almost rugby-built, statuesque kind of guy. And he had hands like shovels. When he hit you, you fucking stayed hit. If he hit you, he'd fucking knock you flying. You got to remember, you was a kid. You was a young child. And an adult was beating you with his fists, slapping you. I mean, he slapped. One slap of him, he slapped me on the arse and put me on my feet, knocked me off my feet. And had this thing about bathing you. And he always used to say, you run away, get in the bath. They punished you, get in the bath. We had one change of clothes a week in Beecholme. I remember Saturday was I was trying to think of this, and I thought, we got to change clothes once a week. So apart from the school uniform, you didn't have any other clothes apart from that. That's it. It was a very cruel life. I remember in Laburnum splitting my head open because I told the kids that we found some old bikes and bike frames. We used to try and make some toys up with what little we could find. And we used to just break off branches and trees and try and make like camps and that. And I used to say to the kids, look at my bomb-proof shelter. And I remember one of the kids throwing this brick at me and it split my head right open because I put my head up and thought, fucking hell, I'd done it at the wrong time. And I was told to say, and essentially in my records, that say you slipped as you was running around the house and hit your head on the side of the wall of the house. And I had to go to sick bay and get my head stitched up. And my brother saw me and I was actually covered in blood. And he said to me, who did this to you? What happened to you? And he was only a year older than me, Frank. But boy, he was hard. They'd made him so hard. He was actually feared in a little town called Epsom. He used to go to Epsom when he was a little bit older, and he got the nickname of Frankie Abbott because he could stand up for himself and he could fight. And boy, did he fight. And he mixed with the older boys from Kerrier, where they had an abusive house parent. They used to beat them. It was very, very strict, very, very harsh, very dark, very cold. And it was truthfully, I remember looking out of my bedroom window in Laburnum, and they used to take the kids away. They used to come in minibuses, like little vans. They used to take the kids away. I don't know where they took them. It was like a paedophile ring. I reported my abuse to Banstead Police Station. They took me in a Black Mariah, took me back to Beecholme, where I was severely punished and bounced off Jeffrey Banner's knee, who was the superintendent of Beecholme, in a perverse, worked up way. He was getting something off of it, what he was doing to me, and saying to me, there's a cane in the corner, and little boys like you that tell lies and make things up about staff will be sent away. And I always remember how dark it was. It was kind of like, the only way you can describe it, it was like a sweet shop to a paedophile. And there was something linked with Shirley Oaks. I don't care what anybody says. There was something linked with these coaches that used to come into Beecholme and take the children away. Sometimes children were never seen again. I remember it was towards the end of my time in Beecholme. Kind of kids just disappeared. Nobody knew where they vanished to, nobody where they went to. And these minibuses. And I remember Jimmy Savile went to Beecholme, and I'm not too sure if one of the coaches that I actually see had, I think it was on the back of the coach. I'm sure it was on the back of the coach, like a sunshine on covering the back part of the coach towards the back, like a, I think it was a sun, but like a kind of smiley face, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so the kids would be taken, and they used to use the. There was like kind of like a sports place where we used to play five-a-side around the back of it, and they used to. Kids always just meet up there, and then we taken somewhere. Sue Peake would back my story up on that, where she's seen the van, she remembers the vans coming into Beecholme. But I had a fantastic view of it from my bedroom window, because there was a street light opposite my bedroom window, and that's what flickered on the ceiling for me to see the Leafs beach league and dancing on the ceiling as I was being abused by Audrey Wilson that time, and just looking up and praying to God. It was hard. It's
Do you know, I could say I can imagine, but I'm not sure I could, Alan. I'm not really.
It wasn't called for. You know, what did I did deserve it? I don't know what to say. It was a very tough, and then they took, as I got a little bit older, they put me in Larch House, and there was only about 12 of us in Larch, and we had this guy called Ian McLaren. So I've been abused by Audrey Wilson and Granny Grace. Got abused in beatings by Pete McTavish. That's 3 abusers. I got into Larch House, and Uncle Ian, we had to call him. We had to call him Uncle Auntie. There's no two ways about it. They were our adopted guardian aunties and uncles. And Ian McLaren would punch you, literally punch you with his fist. He would knock shit out of me and beat fucking living daylights out of me. He really used to batter me, and they used to do something. They always just, he used to try and hit you in the back, and I don't know if they did that to show it, not to so it didn't show. He used to hurt. He used to really hurt.
Yeah.
And he used to give you some hiding to real beat you big time. And, he used to grab hold of you at the kitchen sink after mealtime. You'd go to the kitchen and you'd have to wash up the plates and stuff like that. And kids had rota duties or whatever the case was. And he'd come up behind you and grab hold of you and put you in a strangle lock, and he'd be rubbing up against you, and you couldn't escape because the cupboard was, and he was so powerful and strong. This is a man in his 30s to a boy of 11, 12.
Yeah.
And very, very powerful. I remember him hitting me once, and he knocked me, lifted me off my feet, punched me so hard, he knocked me into the next room. And
do you know what, Alan? You're telling me exactly what John has told me, and that's from my local children's homes, my local homes here. Now I'm in an old pit town called Lee. over in near Wigan, Greater Lancashire. I always say Greater Manchester these days, but it's not, it's Lancashire. And he's gone through the same. Now, this can't be coincidental with all this stuff that's going on. Do you know, it's how people have gone so long, because I know
we
that
weren't allowed to say
people
anything.
always
If we said
know this.
anything, we were punished. We were beaten more.
Yes,
We were
he said
given
the
beaten.
same. He said the
You know,
same, mate. And he's
your
coming
little
out
boys
now.
you've
He's
not
coming
heard
out
was
now, swinging.
bandied about. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm saying he's coming out now. He's swinging for these people because he's so angry about what the system had done to him as a kid. But now, because believe it or not, long story short, when he got involved with the police and the council, he was actually helping some immigrants that had moved into his local area. The kids had no shoes on their feet. There was no carpets in the house. This man and his wife took them to Asda, bought them food, did all this. But I don't know if you're familiar with the term of cuckooing nests, where drug dealers and drug users find places where they can use people. And they found this family, this migrant family that they could go and do stuff with.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So this got reported. This got reported by my friend, and a local college that had been shut down, which was being used. The police raided it. They found prostitution. They found drugs. They found tons of rubbish. They found tons of rats. 30 of these migrants turned up at this lad's house with machetes and knives, beating the door down. What they're going to do to him? The police turned up. What did they do, Alan? They arrested my friend. Yeah. And they give him a restraining order where he could not reside in his own house with his wife, and he had to go and live at his mum's. Now, that court case has been going on. He's managed to get back to his own house, but that court case, because of this mythical fucking COVID-19, has now slowed all the court cases down. And he's still in that position, and he's swinging for the people who are at the care homes now, and he's trying to get in touch with people who were in that care home. To say, look at what this system is. Look at what this system does. He's so frustrated, Alan, and I can see in your eyes, I can see in your emotions what you've been through. This isn't, you've not come on this podcast.
Do you think I'm 65? I'm 65, and it still lives with me. So there's no cure. There's no cure.
No.
Don't get what anybody says.
No.
People say you need counselling, or you should be talking to somebody, or you should be seeking healing, or it's all bollocks.
It is, mate. There's nothing that can take that away. You have to deal with it, and nobody, no matter who you sit down with, it could be the person you love the most. They are never going to be able to take that away. You have to deal with it. Just as I'm not on, I'm not comparing my scale to yours, but my scale of the last 10 years were. Yeah, I couldn't. I had to carry on with my own stuff. Exactly. Please carry on.
So, McClelland, Land. He was so powerful. It'd wrestle you, but what he was doing, he was using you as like a sexual toy. If I can put it that way. He was getting himself aroused with, wrestling with you kind of thing. He used to put his knees on my back, and then he'd stride me on his back, and he'd rub his bollocks on my back as if come G up. He'd say and all that, and it was like a physical, mental, psychological, and sexual torture all rolled into one. The beatings But you got to realise, according to Wandsworth, none of this happened. This is a figment of my imagination. What I'm telling you is a lie. Yeah. It didn't happen. Didn't exist. And this is when we're talking about authority and the police and everybody else. To me, the police are a bunch of paedophile protectors. The judges, they're all implicit in it. Our politicians are implicit in it.
Most definitely.
It's such a disease. We talk about a pandemic. What about the child abuse epidemic that's been rife in this country for donkey's years? Why are we voting these people into power to suck the blood out of the taxpayer and abuse us right, left and centre, and keep us down there and them in the little ivory tower. And you know, I mean, so I'm talking about my fourth abuser now, and then I'm putting, and it went on.
How old are you now? How old are you at this stage now?
I've got to be about 12.
Right,
I'm
okay,
about 12. I'm just starting to, I think I'm starting to go to secondary school, ish, right? It's all in the records, but, and that's another thing. I've been trying to get my records. I asked for my records in 1980 because I said, I want to write a book about what happened to me. And they made a big thing about this. They said they sent my documents to me in 1980. I never got them. It was a lie. And the lies and the stories they come up with. See now, with Beecholme, it's like a biblical plague. There was floods, there was fires, there was all sorts of things that happened to children's records. They were destroyed in floods, or they were destroyed in fires. This evidence of children doesn't exist because it was destroyed some way or another. And we've heard that the contractors, within a year of Beecholme being sold in 1974, within a year, it was bulldozed, completely flattened. And they're saying that the builders destroyed the records in the cellars. Well, there weren't no cellars in Beecholme. The only cellar I could think of was under the stores. But they wouldn't have put all the records. It was just another lie, and it's all deceit and lies.
Oh, well, Alan, it's funny you mentioned cellars because I interviewed Lenny Harper, who was at Halt de la Graine, who were looking for cellars that they said that they said didn't exist. And then some fella come up to Lenny and went, "Yeah, I know where they are." Showed them where they were. They found shackles. They found 136 bones that an anthropologist, forensic woman said, yeah, there are 136 bones of human beings, children-like. And then it all got washed over when Lenny finished his tenure there. It's you start to see patterns. I keep trying to say to people, because I've been asked today on several occasions where I studied virology because of my opinions on the coronavirus. And I went, well, I haven't. I said, that's why I speak to virologists and microbiologists and immunologists and doctors and nurses, just in case I don't know everything. You know, and these people give me sentences that make me think, but thinking has like been made redundant. If something happens once, whoa, that was bad. Something happens twice, oh, that's unlucky. 3 times, hang on a minute. Once it happens more than 3 times, you see a pattern, and this is everywhere, Al.
I ran away twice when I was in Beecholme, and I remember as a little boy when I was in Laburnum, I think I ran away once when I was in Laburnum and once when I was in Larch. And this is a little boy and a young lad who can't take any more. Can't take any more of the beatings. Can't take any more. And do you know what's worse? I've got 2 sisters and another brother. And I never shared another room with my 2 sisters and my other brother ever again in life. Beecholme, they put us all in separate houses. So I never ever, I went to see my sisters, I went to see my brother, but the 4 of us never ever got back together again. Beecholme destroyed my family life, destroyed us as a family. And I ran away, and I remember this little boy walking up through the top field, walking by the woods. We was petrified of the woods because they used to say there was bummers up there, and we used to see guys in there. And I remember some guy offering us sweets once, and we just ran away as quick as we could take us. Our little legs could take us. And I remember walking up by Bannister Station, and I walked across Epsom Downs, probably about midday-ish. And I got as far as Tooting. This little boy walking all the way there, and it started to piss down with rain. And I looked over at Tooting Nick, and I thought, should I just go over there and hand myself in and say I run away from the kids' home? And I thought, well, no, I can't. And I walked all the way back to Beecholme. You know, you're talking probably 25 miles or so. I probably walked 50 miles. That's a guess. So I don't know how far Banstead is from Tooting, but if you said 25 mile, you wouldn't be far wrong.
Yeah.
So, and I remember it was pissing down, and I'm walking across Banstead Downs. I'm shitting myself because I'm not worried about being wet through and drowned. I'm more worried about who's going to jump out and who's going to attack me. And anyway, I ended up, oh shit, and I was peeking through the Laburnum, that like kind of little slotted window in the kitchen, and I was looking through the window, and I could see the deputy head of Beecholme was in there with my house parent, old Granny Grace. And I thought, what can I do? And we weren't allowed to go in the front door. We weren't allowed to use the front doors. We always had to use the back door. We were not allowed, under no circumstance. If you use the front door, you got a beating. You'll get whacked or slapped or kicked or punched. Because little boys didn't use... it was hard. It was very, very hard. And you didn't know where you was coming or going, pushed from pillar to post. It's very disciplined, Dickensian. And I walked in the back door, and I was absolutely dripping wet and stood in a puddle. And I was being lectured by the... Dicker wasn't so bad. He seemed to be all right. Because I remember he gave me £1 when I left Beecholme. And he wasn't abusive. The superintendent was, Geoffrey Banner. But Dicker, he was all right. I never had no problems with Mr. Dicker. And they told me to go and get a bath. Again, bath, dreaded bath. So, wow. I don't know why they fucking told you to get a bath, because 9 times out of 10 when I got a bath, because every other kid had had a bath or whatever, the hot water never used to seem to be hot when I used to get a bath.
Yeah.
So on the odd occasion, you'd try and get a bath when the water was bloody hot. So you'd be the first one in there to get a bath. And the toothbrush went into the bolt, so you'd clock the bolt. And I ran away twice, and the Burnham was the same with McLaren, where he was beating me. And we had an outhouse where they used to keep the potatoes and stuff like that. It was not a lot in there. They used to put some odds and bits in there. And the rafters, we used to make camps with any debris and bits and pieces we could find. And I remember bunking off school and hiding up in the rafters of that. And they used to have rice in the kitchens, like these long rice, like you make spaghetti bolognese. And I used to try and toast it and eat it. Don't ask. Don't know why I did that. And I'd be in my school uniform, and then I remember them because I could hear them sometimes coming in to get potatoes or something like that for tea. And I'd be up there, fucking bored out of my tree. When you're a child and you're up in like a little loft space, you want to be running around or doing something. And when I went, I had my punishment in the primary school. And then I went to outside school. And because I had all my labels in my clothes, they used to get me in the playground and bully me in the playground and call me an orphan and pull my clothes and say, look, he's an orphan. And never one person could do it. It was always a gang. It was always 2 or 3. That's why they call them bullies, because they used to be a gang. Some of the Beecholme boys were bad as well, because we had bullies in Beecholme as well, some bad boys. And there were some older boys that were fucking evil, and I'll come to that story as well.
Were they abused as well? The bullies were they. See, that's how some people turn it, isn't it? If they become the abusers, all of a sudden there's some kind of a justification in their lives.
Well, the women's staff used to walk into the bathrooms where the older boys in Kerrier, used to get bathed, and she would bath them, but she would be playing with them. But they were sexually aware, sexually aroused, and she used to do things to the boys. My brother has given a statement. See, the worst part about this is now, I reported my abuse, what was going on to me, to Banstead Police Station, Banstead. Now, they took me back to Beecholme in the Black Maria, and I got punished by the superintendent, bounced off his knee in a perverse way. Now, I get a phone call out of the blue one day. Someone's walked into a police station and said they were abused in Beecholme. So they have a duty, I wouldn't say duty of care because that's a false word, because they don't use it. They don't use it. They use terms that are not real terms and methods that are not worth the paper they're written on. And so Surrey Police phoned up and said to me, your name was mentioned about Beecholme. Can we come up and interview me? Now, so when I was in Beecholme, I had a really, really hard time. When I left Beecholme, I was put in a hostel. Still a bit more of Beecholme to tell you, but I'll come back. But I'm going to give you a bit of an insight into the whole vicious circle. And like, I was put into a hostel from Beecholme. I was sleeping on the streets of London rough because I was pushed from pillar to post, because when I was 18, I was kicked on the streets of London and said, go and get on with it. You're no longer the council's responsibility. I spent time in prison through being silly because I had nowhere to sleep now. I used to put bricks through windows, shop windows, just to get a night's skip in a police cell. I shouldn't really say this, really, because it's turned me into an awful person, turned me into a horrible person. And I remember the soup kitchens at Waterloo Station, because I used to go down and get a cup of soup. Sofa surfing, sleeping on people's settees all over the place, family members, friends, until they get bored with you and they think, I can't do this anymore, or I can't afford to do this anymore, or you're just a cockroach or whatever. I don't know. A lot of people didn't want to know you. If you had all the money in the world, you'd have all the friends in the world. If you ain't got nothing, you sometimes have nothing, and nobody wants to give you anything. And you can be.
You don't know how close you don't know how close you are to the truth, mate. I mean, 12 years ago, before I discovered that your gas, water, and electric were free, Alan, I had loads of friends. As soon as I started to tell people that, everybody thought I'd gone nuts. But none of them would read the Bills of Exchange Act. Honestly, this is the fickleness of people. And at this moment in time, people are putting masks on to do what? They believe they're going to stop catching or passing on a coronavirus. On the back of the box for the surgical masks, it says this doesn't protect against coronavirus. So I don't know what to say to people anymore when you see the general public reacting to stuff like this, and then somebody like yourself who's lived through this system comes along and says, this happened to me. These people don't want to hear your story, Alan.
No.
They don't want to know how bad your life was. Why do you want to make me feel bad, Alan? Why are you doing this? And that's, I don't understand this thinking.
Oh, man. Yeah. You just said to me, I hit the nail on the head, and you don't know how truthful you are. That is very poignant in everything that I'm saying to you, because let's give it let's put it in a different perspective, right? So in my Beecholme page on Facebook, Justice for Beecholme Survivors, like my T-shirt I've got on now, Justice for Beecholme Survivors, and I've got a page on Facebook called exactly that. I've got something like 756 supporters who befriended me, but they don't contribute, or they don't, like you just said, they will read your posts, but they won't get off their asses and come out and support you and rally with you on the streets, if you get what I mean. In my Facebook account, at one stage, I had over 3,000 friend requests. So between that and my Facebook, I had about 4,000 people following me. And I thought, I've just had these badges made, to give to people. For the crocodile is the paedophile. And it's the same as what was on there, save our children from the paedophiles. And the crocodile represents the paedophile. There is actually, I think, a wooden carved one where there's children in the mouth of the crocodile. That symbol. I mean, Michael Tarrager's used the octopus as the paedophile.
Yeah.
In the tentacles of Michael Tarrager's t-shirts are children being grabbed by the paedophile, and the only way that you can get at a paedophile is to chop his arms off. So one of his arms been chopped off, and so the child's been released. But coming back to Beecholme, so I'm being bullied in the schools now. They're pulling me clothes to pieces so they can show everybody my label. That I'm labelled. I'm a labelled child. I'm not a normal child. I'm different to everybody else. I didn't learn nothing in the primary school. I think when I did my 11 plus in North Park Secondary School near Burr Heath, I failed my 11 plus, and I was put in more or less, dare I say it, dances class, the lowest class in the whole of the school. And I kind of like sat there and I couldn't take anything in.
Yeah.
Because what was happening to me, I was kind of like in a different world. It was very hard to take anything in. It was very hard to hold it and keep it in. I don't know why. I could listen, I could hear, but for something, there was nothing there. It was hollow in between my ears. There was nothing to keep it in. There was, I don't know why. I don't know why I was thick. Why I couldn't read or write, and I had so many difficulties and everything I did. But I struggled on. I tried and carried on. And I ran away from North Park because of the bullying. Stayed up in the camp in my school uniform. And then they put me into another school called Gainsborough. And the same thing happened there. The kids called me an orphan. The one before North Park used to be about 3 miles away. They used to make you walk there every day. Won't give you bus fares to go to school. You had to walk it, and so like it's a 6 mile walk just to go to school. Who fucking walks 6 miles to school nowadays? Do you know what I mean? It's a child. I'm talking about a child under the age of 18, and it was cruel. It was harsh. I was no angel. I was a bad person.
How could you be? You say you was no angel and you was a bad person, you was no angel, right? How could you ever know the difference when you were growing up in that environment? Like I said, I'm a bit of a spoilt kid from a working class background. So I didn't understand money or anything like that because I just asked for it and I got it because my mum and dad didn't have anything and they wanted their son to have everything they never had. It didn't do me any favors in that respect, Alan, but how would you ever get a gauge of what is good and what is bad when you've got grown adults, playing with you in a bath? And it's obvious that as a child, you don't know what that means, but there's a biological reaction, there's a chemical reaction, and that child doesn't know what that means, but there's something happening that can chemically change your brain and create,
do you know what I was saying to you?
PTSD, but other things. So, for me, Alan, I know you're giving a balanced account of it, but I have to take the whip off you. Don't keep whipping yourself over this because if I walked in your shoes, mate, I'd have done the same. The job that I do, I work with a lot of criminals. And if I were knowing them, how I know them now, if I walked in their shoes, if I judged them from my perspective, I wouldn't do what they did. And I could put my uniform on or whatever and bash them to death. But that's not what the case is. These people have gone through an environment and gone through a system that I haven't. And if I did that, I would exactly react the same way, and I would have all the other things that come with it. I mean, somebody in the chat room posted, Alan, that you say you're 65 years now and there's no cure for this. There's post-traumatic stress disorder, right? You can only deal with that you can never forget it. And when you think of it, that emotion is as raw as when it was happening to you. When you think of that, but you can feel it and let go of it. That's the difference between when you've dealt with that.
It's funny you should say that. It's funny you should say that because I saw a psychiatrist. A doctor said you've got attitude problems, and he said you come across very blunt and very straight, and you've got some sort of anxiety and you've got some issues. And I went to see a psychiatrist anyway at the recommendation of the doctor, and I had some counselling as well. It didn't do me a fucking lot of good because all I was doing is talking to somebody that was just nodding like a Churchill dog at me. And the psychiatrist turned around and said to me, he said, look, there's one thing that you've got, and it's called a memory. And your memory will never, ever let you forget, ever, what happened to you. No. It's implanted, it's in you for life.
The only way I've seen that, sorry, the only way I've seen that extra is when the trauma has been so great that the memory will cocoon it and take it away. But that always ends up breaking down at some point. From people who I've spoken to who've gone through these traumas, you know, they got to like into the 30s and things have started to break down and they're getting memories that they've never had and things like that. So you're right, it never goes away, it's always there. And
well, it's strange, you know, because haven't you said that? God, you're very good.
Thanks.
Some of the things you say, you're spot on. It's like you've got a crystal ball in front of you. You're looking into it, and you're telling me my story, and you're knowing my story, and you're seeing my story in that crystal ball as I'm talking.
I deal with a lot
of
people similar, Alan. Honestly, I work with a lot of people similar. I've heard your story not thousands of times, but I've heard so many similar stories that anybody who doesn't listen to these stories and take this information in and try and have a perspective on it and not put your slant on it, you know, don't say what you would have done there. Well, I would have done this. You wouldn't have done anything. You'd have been there as a 6-year-old going, what's going on? And I understand that. And I've seen, do you know what? I'll let you into a little insight here, Alan. There was a lad I was dealing with, and he was 46 years old. He was old school, didn't like talking to people much. And he was stood there and he was looking at me. And I just said to him, I says, you all right, mate? He went, can I speak to you when you've got a minute in private? I went, yeah, of course you can. 3 hours later, this man told me that he'd done a course that had encouraged him to open up about things, which released memories. And he released memories of being kidnapped at gunpoint, forced to do sexual things because of debts that other people had owed. And it happened to him on 2 other occasions. And his parents had covered it up, and his dad had taken him, and all this. So this had all bubbled up, and I don't know what to do. I think I might want to kill myself. In 3 hours, I sat with this man for 3 hours, and he just spilled all this out. So, and it's not much different to what you're telling me. I mean, yours was care homes type stuff. This was family. This was being taken to places for debts. So it's the criminal element that you can see building up here. But Alan,
these people were allegedly our guardians, and it's funny. I'm going to turn around and say now, a good friend of mine called Brian Clare.
I know Brian. I'm friends with Brian.
Brian is a brilliant campaigner. He's been going for a long, long time, and he's an absolute legend at what he does. I've been friends with him for about 2 years. Since the start of this platform.
Me similar.
Sorry.
Me and Brian have been. Me and Brian have been friends for about 2 years as well.
Yeah, he's a brilliant bloke. I don't know. Have you not done a story with Brian?
No, he is going to come on the show. He has mentioned about coming on it, but it's just with work and everything. It's just hard to nail people's hats on, you know, for times and things like that.
But Brian is so precise and so articulate in his. he has seen so many things. He's done so many things. He's written to, I think, ICSA have had his files and everything, and chose not to do anything about it. I mean, ICSA have turned around and said to me, they're not going to do anything about Beecholme, because I've been in touch with them myself. So, when people tell you things like that, you have no faith in them. Wandsworth Council don't have nothing to do with us. Won't have anything to do with us. There's a hide behind. It's like if you can send it. I wrote to all the Labour councillors and all the Conservative councillors at Wandsworth, and not got one reply. Not one reply. Just common decency to show I'm elected in office to serve Joe Public, and yet I won't, even out of courtesy, write to a victim of abuse and turn around and apologise for what happened. No apologies ever come out from Wandsworth because it didn't happen. I've got to prove I was in care, or I was in Shirley Oaks, or I was in somewhere else, right? It's not for me to prove it. It's not for me to prove it. They know.
Well, apparently it is. If I shoot somebody in the face, they've got to prove I've not shot them. That's how they look at it.
Yeah.
The world has gone bonkers, Alan. And then, I like to think I'm a man who likes to have a bit of information and critically think about things. And if I get it wrong and somebody comes along and goes, this is why you've got it wrong, I can go, oh, thank you for that. But when people start calling me names, or it is illegal to ask a question about that pricks my conscience. And I have to go, well, hang on a minute, we need to dig deeper here. And you know what? As a child, I've heard about paedophile rings in the mainstream media from when my mum and my dad would be watching BBC or reading the newspaper or whatever. And I kept thinking, paedophile. Well, why don't we just all go and get these people? Why don't we just all gang up on them and get them? It seems so simple. And then you get
there's something I've not told anybody, and I'll tell you in a minute. Because it's something I've never told anybody. By the time I got to my third house, which was called Larch, so I've gone from Laburnum to Larch to Ash. And Ash was opposite the church, and I was in Ash when the church got burned down in 1968. So what age was I in 68? If I was born in 55.
13.
So I was 13. So when I was there, I was allowed to go home at weekends, back to my parents and mum's, but I could go on a Friday night, but I had to be back on a Sunday. But this house I went into called Larch was run by Gordon Reed and Eileen Reed. And Gordon Reed was a very, very big, tall fucker. Massive guy. He was about 6'4", I'd say. Big dark rimmed glasses, fucking hands like shovels like Pete McTavish. And he used to hit you and he used to punch you in the fucking back of the head. He was bosh. He used to hit you, punch you in the back of your head. Fuck knows why. And I got to the stage, this is going to sound really, really strange, this is, when I say this to you, right? You might find it hard and you might think there's something wrong with me. I used to laugh at him when he used to punch me in the head. I turned and laughed at him.
Mate, John said the same thing about the fellow who used to, and he was, how you've named him and described this fellow. John had described this fellow as, he was this, and he'd have this big smile on his face, and he punched me in the back of the head, and I'd turn around and go, and what?
Yeah, and I used to walk on.
Yeah. He said he'd be on top of him. He said he'd be sat like knelt on his chest, pummeling him, and he'd going, and what? Go on, do more, give it me more. You've got nothing. He ended up in that frame of mind. The
same abuser, Gordon Reed, had knocked one of the children's teeth out with a punch. He actually didn't hit him in the back of the head this time. He actually hit him in the face and punched him in the face. And he actually knocked the kid's teeth out. And he had to get all his teeth done.
Wow.
And was told if he said anything, it's same old story. We couldn't say anything, do anything. If he got a punch in the teeth for not doing anything, what would he get? Would he disappear altogether? Would he just suddenly be in Beecholme one day and gone the next? Would he go in one of them vans that came into Beecholme, and would he be shipped off to somewhere else, or would he be sent to another abusive place like Shirley Oaks and sent away? And you know,
it wouldn't have been hard, would it? It wouldn't have been hard for him to put him in a van and disappear him. It's not hard to disappear people.
Do you know what is the worst thing? The last two abusers that I've named, Ian McLaren and Gordon Reed, are alive to this day.
Yeah.
The police have turned around, Surrey police have reopened the investigation and come back to see me. And they turned around and said that Ian McLaren, because it was so long ago, we called it time spent. We could, if we took it to court and got it past the CPS, we could probably only get a case of actual bodily harm. Nothing more. Yeah. And the paper and work and the work that entails, and going to interview him and everything else, if he denies it all, you know, it's such a long time ago that the only thing we can actually possibly get, and all he would get was a slap on the wrist. Yeah. And they say the same about Gordon Reed. He's still alive. Yes, we know these people are still alive. And I said to him, well, why the fuck haven't you brought them in to interview them? And then you could ask other children that were in Beecholme to verify the stories, because if people are naming the same houses and the same house parents, there's a problem. It's not a conclusion, it's a fact that people are naming the same people, the same houses where the abuse took place. And we remember this went on for donkey's years. I mean, I've gone from 6 to 13 and I'm still being abused. Yeah. And it's gone past 1965 when Wandsworth turned around and said, this is another thing that pisses me off, because they're saying that when I went into care, it was LCC, the London County Council. Yeah. The London County Council became the Greater London Council, the GLC. The councils then got sold off or became independent boroughs. So Hammersmith and Fulham, or Chelsea and Kensington, Westminster, Islington and Wandsworth and all these other different boroughs became separate. And so now you have a mayor of London, you know. And what Wandsworth is saying is, because we only took over Beecholme in 1965, we can't be responsible for the abuse that happened in Beecholme. Well, I've just told you an incident, and we just, you know, I haven't worked it out. I asked you, how was I in 1968? And you turned around and told me I was 13. Well, if I was 13 and I was born in 55 and Beecholme took over in 65, I would have been 10, but I was 13. So I was still being abused. If I bought this house and 3 of the roof tiles fell off, I went back to the previous owner and said, 3 of the roof tiles have fallen off. Are you going to replace my roof? Ain't going to happen, is it?
Nah.
At the end of the day, I'm responsible for everything that happens to this house. Look, Wandsworth took on its ilks and everything that happened to Beecholme, and before and after. If I was putting the Beecholme in the 60s and they took it over in the 60s, they still got to be responsible for it.
Oh, that sounds like COVID, that. Sounds like COVID, that, Alan. The police will be coming knocking in a minute.
I hate the police. I remember getting beaten up by 8 coppers. And I'm really anti-establishment, anti-authority, hate authority. The amount of times I've walked out of jobs and told the manager to fuck off. And talking at me, not to me.
Me also.
And I hate that. I hate when people talk down to me. I get this thing when people say, you've got an attitude. I mean, well, don't talk to me like a piece of shit and then I might respect you. It works both fucking ways.
Easy.
You know what I mean?
Easy.
And, you know, and I'm not an intelligent man. The university I went to was the University of Life, and it was a fucking tough life. Yeah. Everything I've learned, everything I've got, everything I've been, well, no, I haven't been given anything. Everything I've got, I've worked for myself, I've got myself. And my wife saved my life, because I met my wife in London, a Lincolnshire girl, and then that's why I ended up in Lincolnshire. She took me out of the pisshead, and I was doing stupid things. I got drunk. I slept on the streets of London rough. I ended up in every prison in London. I was in Wandsworth prison when they still had cold showers, and you weren't allowed radios in them days. When I went into Wandsworth, it was still probably one of the strictest prisons in London. Wandsworth.
Oh yeah.
It was almost like an anti-terrorist kind of prison in them days. I don't know about the RAA and anything that's come after. And yeah, I was in Brixton, where I saw some things you won't believe it. I seen in Brixton when I was on remand, you could make tea. We used to have a thing called canteen, and you used to go if you was like, I got on the cleaners to try and get out the cell a bit more. Mop the recesses out and the landings and that, and it was just yes gov, no gov, 3 bags full gov. Like, and I thought, well, I've been institutionalised, so calling you governor's no different to calling Auntie Grace, or Uncle Pete. Or
mate,
Uncle...
you can call them gov, and it can sound like fuck off. Thanks, gov. That sounds like fuck off.
Well, we used to call them kangaroos, didn't we? Kangaroos for screws. And and anyway, cut long story short, I was in there. I was in Pentonville. I was in the scrubs. Fucking hell. And in Wandsworth in the scrubs, I've seen the cockroaches climb out of underneath the apple pie, the crust of the apple pie, and scald themselves on the custard. The apple pie was probably cold. The custard was a bit hotter, so fucking horrible things. And I see a guy in Brixton where he was a paedophile and on Rule 43, I think, and they didn't have no room on 43. So because he was a big set fella, they thought they could put him on ordinary block, on the C block. And he was on C block on the 4s. And as he came up the landing on the 4s, he was given the kangaroos or the screws stick, or gov stick. And in the end, they turned around and just fucking nodded to one of the inmates who was in there with a family of his own. That he was a pedo. And he came up the stairs one day, this geezer, and he got this urn from boiling hot water from the recess, filled it up with sugar, and threw it straight in his face. And he was screaming like a belcher. He was, hollering like a little baby. And all the alarm bells went off, and we all had to go back into our cells and all that. And that happened quite a few times. I got into a couple of fights in the scrubs. And I turned into a bit of a fighter and scrapper myself. I was always fighting when I was in the hostels and things like that. And
it's the environment, mate. If you don't fight, you drown. Yeah. Sometimes when you're in those environments.
But what it also did to me, Beecholme made me a bully as well, because when I was in Beach, the last house I was in before I left, that weren't too bad. The abuse had stopped by then. And it was a better house, Beach, and plus I was a teenager by this time. And but I was a nasty bastard. I was a nasty teenager, because the older kids that were in the likes of Carrier there was a guy called Michael Attico. It'd make me fight the kids, the younger kids. And he'd say, make them dance. And if they didn't dance, he'd tell you to hit them. If you didn't hit them, he hit you. And I had to stand there and punch this guy, remember, Michael. And I fucking hated doing it. But if I didn't hit him, he beat me up. And it's a horrible thing to say. And it's lived with me for a long, long time that I bullied, or I became a bully from the abuse that I was suffering in one shape, form or another, that I turned into a bit of an abuser myself. And I know that sounds a horrible thing to say, and I shouldn't really say that. And I shouldn't really admit what I did. And then when I was going through a rough patch,
it's the truth. It's the truth. This is what this is about. Telling the truth. I mean, do you know what? Let's be blunt. If you're a cunt, you're a cunt.
Though, is it?
Do you know what I mean? No, it's not. No, it's not. But you have to state it, because situations make cunts, right? And if you're a cunt, you have to admit you're a cunt. You don't have to be a cunt forever.
No.
You know what? I'm not the same man I was 20 years ago. I'm not the same man I was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, when I started my path, which was the legal system, where judges, banks, police all got together and said, we're taking everything materially that you've got from you, even though we haven't got any lawful way to do this. And yes, you're presenting good evidence that is the contrary. But if you win this, that means we have to stop all our frauds. And that was the mortgages, that was the gas, water, and electric. All of this fraudulent system based on an income tax system that you volunteer anyway. All of that was making too much sense to me. And the system turned on me and wanted to do all kinds. They stole everything from me. Physically, I've had my life saved twice in the last 10 years by, they're not even friends. My brother and my best friend ever has saved my life, but I've lost friends because of my journey of exploring, where I'm saying, do you know that bank's not lent you money for that house? And I'm being called a nutter and I'm being ostracized and people are dropping me left, right, and center. Spiritually, I've always known there's something after this life, but I've never been religious. Now I know what is coming. Now I know. I sound like I could stand on a mountain, Alan, and smash my face into a Bible myself when I say it. But after being saved and thinking, I know what this world is. I know what you're all about. I can see the evil. The contrary to evil has got to be good. If you think that this world is based on goodness just because a few good people do things and bring you an apple pie, that's not what this is about. This is evil in its pureness. And when you look at systematic evil, where you see a baby is born, a baby is given a number, social services can get hold of that number because that baby's been registered, so that property is now transferred to the state. We can now get involved in this family and this child's life. If you mess about with our property, we're taking our property and we'll do what the fuck we like with it. That's the fundamentals of what the system is, what you experience, what you've lived.
Well, I was saying something to you that I said that I hadn't told anybody about it and never ever. I didn't even tell the police about it. I didn't think. I told them the worst bits. It's nothing really. I mean, when I was in Ash with Gordon and Eileen Reid, she used to let you go into her bedroom where she used to live with her husband in her bedroom, and she'd lie on the bed and watch the telly. And she had this cat, and she used to put it on her chest, this cat. And she used to say to you, stroke the cat. And I'd stroke the cat, and black cat she had. And she used to lie there, and her arms down to her side. And she'd say, stroke his tail. He likes that. Stroke his tail. But his tail was across her boobs, kind of thing. And she said, don't, it's all right. He likes that. Stroke his tail. And you was basically just touching her up.
Yeah.
And she was letting you do it. And
to be fair, Alan, I actually thought you were going to say she told you to stroke her pussy, which would have been just another.
I'll get that.
You know, that would have been another fucking thing for her, I suppose. But I get what you're saying. You're stroking a cat's tail, so a child is stroking a cat, but it's going across a boob that somebody on an adult level is getting something out of. Now, if that's not abuse, right? Because I've spoken to people who've been buggered and beaten black and blue all at the same time. So they wouldn't say that what you went through necessarily was the same abuse, but that is how it started for them. That's how it started.
Mine, the physical abuse was the worst thing to take. The sexual abuse, I was lucky in some respects because I never ever got penetrated. So I'll put that on record straight away. I never bled from an orifice and things like that and was in severe pain or had injuries that lived with me for a long time after, if not to this day. The only thing it
Yeah.
affects is your head.
Yes, definitely.
Because I don't care what anybody says. And my argument I've always been put in harm's way when I was in Beecholme. And when I first met my wife, because, you know, I was like a nomad. And there is times I sat on railway stations and felt like jumping.
Yeah.
Because of what I was going through. And there was times I was in a block of flats because my mum lived in a tall block of flats. When I was in Beecholme, my dad died when I was 10 years of age in Beecholme. So when I went into Beecholme, I never saw my dad again. But he was an abusive bastard anyway, so I wasn't really bothered. And he was a horrible man. And my brother turned out like him.
Wow.
And yeah, it's. Do you know my sister Margie? When she was leaving, she was abused by Mr. Gray in Thistle, and my older sister, she was abused. Frank was abused. All four of us were abused in Beecholme, and we've all. Well, Margie's deceased now, bless her. And that was a cruel story in itself because Margie was abused in Beecholme and never said anything about it. And then when she was leaving Beecholme, they took her up to Banstead Station and one of the staff put her on a train to see her off to a lodgings where she was getting a bedsit, I think, in Wallington. And for safekeeping, they put her in with the driver because they thought she'd be safe. And when the driver got her into the cab, he abused her in the cab when she was in the cab leaving Beecholme. So not only did she suffer abuse in Beecholme, life thereafter was Margie, for what happened to us, was so desperate to have children. She couldn't conceive naturally herself. So she was so desperate to have children. The only way she could have children was she tried fertility treatment. They said, don't stay on it for too long because you might get cancer. And Margie was so desperate to have children, she stayed on it for 8 years. Yeah. And she ended up getting breast cancer. And eventually the cancer went to her liver. Margie never done anything wrong to anybody. She never swore at anybody. She never did anything wrong. She paid her way. She paid her bills. She was a good girl. She's beautiful. If you saw a picture of my sister Margie, you'd think she would have been a model. I don't know where I went wrong. I think I must have been dropped on my face when I was a baby. But yeah, I mean, I probably, when I popped out, I probably thought, fuck this, and climbed back in. Yeah, it was tough. It was really, really hard going. And, you know, I mean, when I met my wife in my 30s. So my first 25 years kind of like was non-existent. Very thick. Couldn't hold a job down really. In and out of jobs from pillar to post. Didn't like being spoken to in a manner. Got myself into all sorts of troubles and scrapes and things. And I met my wife and I moved up to Lincolnshire. And in my 30s, when I first, you know, when I got married and we got our first house, and I used to lie in bed and I used to have nightmares. And I used to be jump up in the middle of the night and I was fighting, you know. I see the shadows on the ceiling again. And I thought Audrey Wilson was coming to get me or something. And my wife used to pat me and try and calm me down and reassure me. And I just calmed down and go back to sleep. And for years and years and years, I'd forgot about. I let it be. I accepted what happened to me. I accepted that I was a wrong 'un and I'd done some stupid things in my time. And then never had no kids of my own. My wife had a boy and a girl from her first marriage. And we had 5 grandkids in our marriage, or have had 5 grandkids in our marriage. And my grandkids adore me. And I worked in schools as well. And I actually, when I went for an interview, when I met my wife in Pinchbeck, and I went for a school for the job as a caretaker at the school. And I sat with the headmaster in the interview, and I said, I've got to be truthful with you. And I told him about Beecholme. I said, I haven't told people about this. I don't tell people about what happened to me in Beecholme. I don't speak about it. In the 80s, we still didn't call a paedophile, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can talk about sex as you probably would do today. And I told him about what happened to me in Beecholme. And I told him that I'd been in trouble a lot, went off the rails and got myself into a lot of trouble and done some stupid things. And I wanted to make good. And he gave me the job. And within a year, from my background of doing a bit of plumbing and that, I was doing all the plumbing in the school and the repairs and maintenance. He made me up to maintenance officer. And then from that, I started to do a bit of grass cutting and that and making the gardens look nice. So in the end, he made me up to site manager. So I ran the school. When the contractors came in, he left it for me to deal. He'd done the teaching side of things, the rest of it, the cleaning side of it, the maintenance and the repair side of it. He left in my capable hands. Let me get on with it.
Yeah.
Money was better, and I've done it for 15 years. I worked with him for 11, and he was an absolutely brilliant guy to work with. But he was the first guy that I actually sat down with and told my story to, and said to him, like, I've got to be truthful and honest with you. And I don't know why I'd done that.
Well, let me ask you, you don't know why, but how did you feel after you'd told him?
I thought he was going to show me the door.
Yeah, but no, how did you feel after you'd got rid of that?
Sorry.
After you'd...
Relieved.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. People who I've spoken to people like who've gone into situations like this, and when they've actually just gone blah 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 and got everything out, it's like they took a concrete raincoat off and they've walked out and gone, wow, I didn't know I could do that, but I can do that. And obviously the factor is that you did get the job and he didn't just show you the door.
Yeah, I gave a lot back though. I mean, I did more than I should ever have done. I did twice as much work. You know what it's like working in schools. A lot of teachers give a lot more than they actually take out. I think so anyway.
Do you know what I find? I know a lot of teachers as well. One teacher I know specifically who suffered kind of physical abuse at home, and I would have said at one point, Alan, that she was probably the most non-maternal woman I could have ever spoken to. And that all changed once she had kids. And not only would she fight an army to death for her own kids, but she does it for other people's kids, because kids are kids. And she deals with people who've got kids who are struggling, who've got ADHD possibly, and who are being abused at home or are neglected coming to school in clothes that are falling off them and all that. And social services are trying to help them. This woman just puts her arms around them and hugs them. That's her normal thing. She's gone back to a school where they painted boxes on playgrounds to stick kids in. And I know that she'll be clawing her face off, Alan, because kids shouldn't do this. And do you know what? I'm not giving too much away, but I got a little text here saying, just done playground, Madam Bonkers, everybody's safe. I went, I hope you broke the rules.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah. And do you know what? It's strange. It's kind of like spooky-ish, because I had such a good rapport with the kids.
Yeah.
It kind of like being both sides of the garden fence. You kind of like gone through the establishment and gone through the system, that you was working in an environment with children where you'd been in an environment as a child.
Yeah.
So my argument was that you have to come down to their level. Yes. And you got to listen to them. You got to give them fist bumps when they want to do fives with you, and when they do fist bumps with you. You got to do it. You just be in their kind of mindset for a little while, and just show them a little bit, and don't be the disciplinarian the teachers are to them. And because I wasn't like that, I remember it was strange because I went from Pinchbeck because Kathy wanted to move back to Louth in Lincolnshire, and she wanted to be near the kids, her kids and the grandkids. And the only way I could get from the school, and we was going for a bad time anyway, was putting a special measure after, and we had several heads after a good boss. There was a company who used to do the groundswork, because I used to do the grounds. And I got glowing reports and won a gold award for the school. And I thought the only way I'm going to get to Louth is if we sell our house and buy a house in Louth, and I can get a transfer with the groundsmen who do all schools in the Lincolnshire area. So I thought I'd have a word with the guy, and he came down to see me, and he said, "Your grounds are fantastic." And I showed him a letter I'd got from one of the inspectorate to say, Alan is to be congratulated on the grounds he does. So he knew I'd done a bit of it. So he wasn't just taking on a groundsman that didn't know what he was doing, because I was marking football pitches out, I was cutting hedges, I was cutting grass. You know, I'd use streamers and mowers and stuff like that. And I worked for them for 9 years, but it helped me get a transfer to where we are now, and moved to Lincolnshire. And then out of the blue, I get a phone call from Surrey Police saying, "Can we come up to interview you about the abuse that happened in Beecholme? Our name's been given to you. Our name's been given to us. Your name's been given to us. And can we come and speak to you?" So I had to relive, and I broke down because I kind of got better. If that might sound a bit strange there, I got better.
No.
I kind of forgot and put the past behind me. I kind of like put a lid on it, put it to bed, buried that skeleton, or whatever the case might be, or the saying might be. And they came back and they picked at an old septic wound. And if you keep picking at something, it goes septic.
Yeah.
And so they came here, and I had to relive the abuse I suffered in Laburnum, the abuse I suffered in Larch, with McCready, McLaren, Grace, Audrey, and Gordon Reed, Pete McTavish. And in his statements, there was never a mention about Pete McTavish beating me. They never even put that bit in there. And some of the other bits and pieces, not much about Gordon Reed either. But I had 5 abusers in Beecholme. 2 of them, by the time the police have got to me, are deceased. 3 of them deceased. So there's no case to answer. You can't go after a dead person. Although I was still put in harm's way. And that was my argument with the police.
Even though within most of this system, we're all dead fucking people. Apart from common law, we're all dead. Do you know what? This is the hypocrisy about this, Alan. The abuse that the likes of yourself has suffered. You know, it's good to see you now. I know you're saying you're 65, but it's good to see after 25 years of basically bimbling about, not knowing really what's going around, because I feel like for 30 years of my life, I was reactive to my environment and to things that were going on and belief systems that have been given to me type stuff, and not really knowing my own path, not really knowing what I wanted to do or what I should be doing or anything like that. It was all self-centeredness. It was all selfishness. And then events happened and conspired to take everything off me, strip me bollock naked and go, "And now what are you going to do?" And it was like,
It's like I'm saying to you, Webby. It's like I'm saying to you, you know, they then said to me, "Can we do an interview with you on tape?" And they arranged, fucking pissed me off. They said £1 million was spent on Operation Brockhurst, the Beecholme inquiry. They give them all different names, these abuse cases.
Yes.
And so ours was called Operation Brockhurst, and run by out of Guildford, Surrey Police. And didn't think too much of Surrey Police when I was in Beecholme, because they did fuck all for me when I was in Beecholme. Apart from get me sitting on fucking Jeffrey Banner's knee And so I went and done a recording, and I broke down in that as well. And they said to me, the woman, Lottie, I think, DC Lottie, so Rihanna said to me, you was really good, and your story came across so well, and your reenactments of curling into a ball like you said you did when you pissed the bed and stuff like that when you was being abused by Audrey Wilson, and all that she says, so you came across so well. So you know, and then they said to me, they came back January time, February time, and said to me, oh, we want to come and see you. And I thought, oh, okay, fine. So they said, we've got a letter for you. Can you open it when we've gone? Now, these fuckers are doing a 4-hour journey from Guildford to Lincolnshire, a 4-hour journey back. They're having rest bikes. They're booking 16 to 18-hour days, spending £1 million on an operation into child abuse, when that would have probably gone better to the victims of Beecholme that are still alive to this day, like myself and many others. Instead of, I mean, Boris Johnson turned around on LBC and said £6 million was spaffed up the wall on child abuse inquiries. And that pissed me off big time.
I'm not surprised.
We made a video of Boris Johnson saying that, and then in the background, it does an interview with me at the Melanie Shaw rally in Rampton, where I'm speaking for the first time in public, in front of a public audience. I was invited to the Melanie Shaw rally at Rampton, where we let the fireworks off.
Right.
Because she hadn't seen fireworks for 2 years, and we went there to show our support. And I was invited to go there, and they asked me if I'd speak, and I spoke, and I broke down in that. And you know, people were coming up to me. They were hugging, people, total strangers, never seen me in my life before, coming up and putting their arms around me, kissing me, cuddling me, and never met me. I was like Joe fucking nobody, and they've come up to me and agreed with me if I was like a long lost friend or.
How did you deal with that, Alan? Because that happened to me at a British Constitution Group conference once. I went down to Nottingham. Yeah.
You didn't know where to I didn't know where to show my face. I thought, why are you? I've only just.
Yeah. I was the same.
About something that happened to me, and you're kind of almost embracing me as some sort of fucking hero, and I'm not that. I'm not. And people calling me brave, and I thought, well, I'm not fucking brave.
Well, I had a lad who travelled 4 hours, right? And I remember this clearly. I was stood talking to somebody, and I was stood talking to him for about 25 minutes. I'd gone down to Nottingham to do this talk on bills of exchange and utility bills. And I'd done the talk. I was stood chatting. There was a fella stood next to me, and he waited and waited and waited. And I finished talking. I turned, and he put his hand out straight away. He shook his hand, introduced himself as Paul, and he said, I've travelled 4 hours today to come and listen to you to do a talk. And he said, I've been listening to your videos and MP3s coming down in the car. And I went, oh my God, you're a bucket for punishment, aren't you? And he went, and he's still shaking my hand. And he went, I just want to thank you for saving my life. And my heart dropped. Everything shut off. You know, I couldn't hear anybody around me. And I went, what? I went, how have I saved your life? He said, you wouldn't believe my family, my friends, all turning their backs on me, all telling me I was nutter because of this gas stuff and this, that, and the other. And he said, I couldn't put it together. He says, I couldn't articulate it. I watched your video. He says, that video, everything just slotted. And he said, I went round to my friends and my family and I showed them. And he said, from being a nutter, they were going, oh, wow, you might be onto something. He said, I'd contemplated taking my own life. And I'm looking at him, Alan, I'm going, I was trying to save my own life whilst I was doing all this. I didn't do it for you, but you're telling me I saved your life. And I went, I didn't save it, mate. You saved yours. I said, I just happened to be in the right place with a few words at the right time. But my word, that didn't sit comfortable with me, Alan. Somebody come and tell me I'm alive when I know how much of a cunt I've been in my life. And I know,
me too.
you know, I know what I've done,
Well
and I know
said,
what
well
I'm
said.
trying to do.
I can measure that. I can. When you say that, I can turn around and say, well, fucking hell, this guy. You don't realise how truthful and how, with you speaking to lots of people, you pick up things and like that. And when you talk to somebody or interview somebody, some of the things you say ring so true.
Yeah.
And your experience is to be commended. You are a truly a good person, and I appreciate what you've done with me tonight.
Mate, I appreciate you coming on and telling us.
It wasn't easy. I mean, let me
actually,
finish what the police were saying to me.
Yes, please.
And they came back to me and said, "We got a letter for you. Can you open it up when we've gone?" And they were trying to kind of look for praise and to say, "Well, you know, how do you think we acted, and what do you think?" I said, "Well, you're coming across all right, but what's in the letter?" And I wanted to know what was in the letter. And they said, "No, we don't want you to open it till you go." So, like fucking personalised, and I showed them an easy way of getting out of here, because there's a long way and a short way. And I showed them a short way, and I just drove my van down the road. So I came back home and I opened this letter. And they said, "Your case has been concluded. There's not sufficient evidence to do anything in your case." So what I did is I tricked Paddy Myers, who was the investigating officer, the lead investigation officer. That's what they call them now, lead investigating officers. Mm-hmm. So I tricked him one day and I phoned him on my house phone and I recorded him on video. Now, I had 21 minutes of a recording with Surrey Police and getting them basically to admit there was a problem in Beecholme, and seeing how far their conclusion would get in a court of law by getting the horse to admit it, or from the horse's mouth. And I put it straight away. I put it up on Facebook and all that. I thought, fuck yeah, I'm not hiding from you, and blah, blah, blah. Next day, I'll get a phone call from this. You've put that on the internet, that interview. He said, "You're not the person I thought you was," and all this, blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, "Look, time and time again, you kept saying to me, if I'm brave enough to come down, or if I want to come down, you're going to tell me." I said, "What is the point of me coming down to talk to you and having a one-to-one with you for you to explain something to me that I don't explain, that it's not explainable? Your reactions, your terminology, your whole aspect to what I've gone through with you and told you and opened up to, it just doesn't seem feasible that you can spend £1 million of public money on investigating what happened in child abuse, but you're not going to take it any further." And I'll take it. I've managed to save 6 minutes of it, and I've still got that tape today. And I don't know if you've seen that, because I put it on my wall. Because you've seen quite a bit of my stuff, haven't you?
Yeah. Like I said, I like to look at stuff that your particular background and what you're talking about, because I speak to so many. Mandy Coupland in Nottingham, I've spoken to her about the children's homes over there. Obviously, Mel Shaw, you've already brought up, who's linked with the Nottingham stuff. But it's a collective of everything. It's even the lad who I know locally who's had so much trouble. And then when you listen to his background, this lad can barely read and write, just like yourself. He can barely read and write, but this lad can build houses. He can build houses. You know, he's got those skills. Could he draw the houses? Maybe not. Could he do the schematics? Could he understand them? Maybe not. Can you build a house? Yeah, I can. That's all you need. And this lad went through abuse after abuse, where he would name people like you are, and he's doing it on his own webpage now, but he'd name people and he'd say, "This is what's happening. This is what's happening." You'd walk past somebody and a crack at the side of the head, you wouldn't know what day it bloody was. Your ear would be ringing.
Webby, can I read something to you?
Yes, I can't read it myself, so you read it.
Right, there's a letter that I got from the solicitor. I've been scribbling on it. I mean, you can see my writing.
Yeah, no. So, yeah.
So anyway, this is what the solicitor for Arizona law, who's supposed to be helping us Beecholme survivors. Now, they wrote a letter to me one day and saying, our price has gone up to £300 an hour. But they're not going to investigate Beecholme because there's only 30 or 40 of you who have come forward. Well, a lot of people are fucking going to die, aren't they?
Not worth it, is it, mate? Not worth it. Not worth it.
So they're saying, because there's only 30, 40 of you, our £300 an hour wouldn't go very far over 30, 40. But if there'd been 300 or 400 of you, we might have taken Wandsworth to court.
I bet.
And said that you had a duty of care and you were there responsible for their parenthood. But anyway, let me read this. This is what the solicitor wrote. And it's fucking shit for an educated person as well. He raised in Laburnum, I should say he was raised in Laburnum, but I wasn't raised in Laburnum because I was in several different cottages. He was raised in Laburnum House where Granny Grace was the house mother. Grace would take off his clothes and give him a pair of shorts. Grace would give the applicant a hiding, slapping and beating him on the back of his legs. Grace would hit him repeatedly and force him to get into the bath. He would often be sent to Geoffrey Banner's office. Banner would sit him on his knee and bounce the applicant off up and down on his knee. He was threatened with the cane and would be hit across the knuckles by Mr. Margates. So all the stuff I said to him, they've like put in one sentence about 3 different types of abuse. But there's a slapping and beating him in the back and legs. Grace,
do you know what, Alan? Sorry, mate. It sounds to me, because it's the legal stuff I pick up on, right? The legal stuff, they've tried to cram 7 years of abuse into one sentence.
Yeah. That is it. That's exactly what it is.
That's how they dilute this stuff, though. This is why these bastard criminals, the worst criminals I've ever met, Alan, are solicitors and judges. The police are just their dogs. You know, solicitors are practicing, barristers, VC.
This is a solicitor letter. It says
it. Yeah, exactly. I can hear it. I can hear the solicitor in it.
Grace would hit him repeatedly to force him to get into the bath. He would often be sent to Geoffrey Banner's. There's nothing in here about the carbolic soap and forcing it into his mouth. Close off, give him a pair of shorts. Grace would... Hang on. Audrey Wilson came into the room and stroked his genitals under the covers. At bath time, she scrubbed him with carbolic soap and a floor scrubbing brush, leaving him red raw and burning his eyes. He omitted to cover himself and curl into a ball. She called him a dirty boy and slapped him. She washed his mouth out with soap as well and tried to lock the door. He tried to lock the door on her to stop her from coming in. In Larch House, the householder rubbed her body up against the applicant's body while strangling him. Staff Gordon Reed beat him on numerous times. So all the abuse I suffered is that type bit there.
Yeah.
And that's the law of the land.
Wow. See, now I'm going to dispute that because that law of the land is being diluted through civil law, which is man-made bollocks, and that is being diluted. If this was down to law, that all those people that you've named, they'd have been virtually dug up out of the graves and sentenced.
Pistol.
Yes.
Hold a pistol them.
But you could do that as well. But you could do that as well. What I'm saying is, though, if we stuck to law, you would be digging them people up and still sentencing them and then sticking them back in the grave after you pissed on them. But what they are doing and what they've always done is dilute it down to man-made civil law, which is all based on commerce and agreements. There isn't enough financial incentive for that solicitors to take on a system for 40 people when...
Yeah.
Let's be good to the system and say 35 of them could either be debunked or pummeled to the point where they're not interested. And this is what they do. They tried to make me, when I was bringing stuff to the courts, they did everything not to look at it. just keep dragging it out, keep dragging it out. But because I was representing myself, it wasn't costing me anything. So after 5 years, I've got a district judge saying, this has cost the court far too much money. But they still stole everything because they are criminal cunts that use man-made civil law. And the best thing about it, Alan, is civil law is in English, and it's patented so and sold around the world as civil law. Because how much fuckery can you have with a language that has 8 words to describe one thing, where other languages will have 1 word to describe 8 things? You know,
Well,
we can fuck about a lot with this, and that is why this system uses it against us. Do they take Paul the Man into these courts? No, they don't. They take Mr. Webster, which is a business version of me. And we don't understand any of this. And we've got to break that down.
Webby, Arizona Law was the solicitors that were running this from Portsmouth, right? They were doing it. And at one stage, Charles Deerham, who was the main solicitor dealing with it, or the child abuse specialist who was running it, he said at one stage we had 61% chance of this going to court. Now they're telling us we've got less than 50% chance of it going to court, and they saying you've got to go to the odds of 1%. So whether that 1% is in favour or against, the 1% against might be the bit that all they need, and it's just all bollocks. It's all fucking artificial. It's all fucking unreal that our whole system is corrupt. And our judges, our lawyers, our police officers, they're all fucking paedophile protectors or abuse victims. They're all complicit in it themselves.
They're all employees at the end of the day, and they all work for this same system. I've had a massive debate today about voting over politicians, and Dominic Cummings has done this, and Boris Johnson should have done that. I went, do you realise that these people can lie to you legally under parliamentary privilege? They don't work for you. Why do you think they would have integrity towards you? Why would you think anything like this? And yet people still go, yeah, vote though. Oh, if you don't vote, you can't complain. I don't know what to say to these people anymore, Alan.
Yeah.
It's bare. It's laid bare. Everything is laid bare. If you choose not to act or look at information in an age of information, ignorance is your choice.
Yeah. Very well said. But, you know, I mean, it's strange because I can talk to you about so much others as well, because growing up as well, there's things that I've done that is strange, really, because part of my life as well, I was a cab driver in London, and I used to pick up people from a place called Elms Guest House in Barnes, because I was working out of Fulham.
I know Elms.
On Fulham Road. And I cabbed in London for a few years till I got pissed up and fucking ruined it all. Went through one of them stupid fucking periods of my life where I went silly again.
As we do.
And I remember picking up Koo Stark, who used to work out at Knightsbridge in a photography studio in Knightsbridge, when she was allegedly seeing Prince Andrew. And I remember picking fares up and taking people to Dolphin Square. And I remember about a children's home in Roehampton, and there are all these links to the Elms Guest House, this children's home in Roehampton, where children would be taken from the children's home to the Elms Guest House. And about Dolphin Square, people said to me, don't talk about Dolphin Square. There were 1,200 flats in Dolphin Square, and 1,000 of them, about 100 of them maybe, were used by politicians, lords, peers, and all sorts. Because it was only, you could actually walk from there to the House of Commons or the Palace of Westminster. And at one stage I came across a document where 150,000 indecent images were found on laptops and electronic devices in the Palace of Westminster. Now they're at the heart of this. I remember the days of Jimmy Savile. I remember because he was in Beecholme, and what's gone on since then. and I've seen royalty with Cliff Richard and Christ knows what of them, the Rolf Harrises and Tiny Kangaroo fucking Dance Boy and all that shit. And I remember so much through my time in London as well. And you learn things, you pick up things, and you click. Because it was strange how we used to get waved on in Dolphin Square to pick somebody up. And yet the police never used to stop anybody or stop any of the vehicles. And people say to me, don't talk about it, Alan, because it's a taboo subject. And you'll get yourself into trouble talking about it because it's involving very, very high-ranking officers and things like that. And there's a lot of things I can say. And the thing with Shirley Oaks, the Shirley Oaks thing, it was a con in that, because what they tried to do with the victims of Shirley Oaks, which was linked to Beecholme, I don't care what anybody said, and there was a paedophile ring there. And I think some of these vans were being taken, kids were taken into some of these places like the Elms Guest House and Dolphin Square. I don't give a fuck what people say. And I think there is a guy that actually says that he went to one of these places and they used to waterboard children in the bath and do things like that, or duck them. There was like a ritual where they put the kids in the water, head first into the water, and have anal sex with them and things like that. And there'd be all-night parties and things like that. And there's lots and lots of things that I can say. And I've seen a lot of things myself, done a lot of things. I've been through a lot of things. And you know when something's wrong and definitely not right.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
But the trouble is, you bang your head against politicians, because I went to Victoria Atkins, who's my local MP, and her and her PA, personal assistant, were in tears in the office as I was telling them a story about Beecholme. And the tissues came out, and she invited me to the Home Office, where I took John Wedger, I took Sue Lorraine Peake, I took Graham Sargent, and I took another Beecholme victim. And she totally dismissed John Wedger because she thought he's an ex-police officer, and I introduced him as an ex-police officer who's a whistleblower. She didn't want to fucking know, because John should still rein the line in that he was a copper and he was there to do a job, and what he saw and what he done, he should take to his fucking grave instead of speaking out about it. And like you said, Fred, with everything, that his house would be taken away, his children would be taken away, and to shut the fuck up and don't say anything.
Yeah.
And she took that line, and she did do nothing about it. And we went to Theresa May. Well, let's talk about Theresa May. Herbert Brazier, her father, was an abuser. We sent the interim report of Beecholme to her, and she fucking totally dismissed it.
Because more than likely, Alan, she was probably one of the abused. And, you know, she's locked into that system. It's funny you mention about MPs, though. My local MP used to be Andy Burnham. You know, I've just managed to stop myself calling him Andy Bastard. But Andy Burnham was my local MP. His personal assistant kept me away from him for 4 years. He never replied to any of the emails that she told me I should send him. And I couldn't get an appointment to see him, yet everybody else could, who had problems getting the bins emptied, or the odd sofa or fridge that has been left at the end of the backs. But because I wanted to speak to the then Shadow Health Secretary about elderly people in winter choosing between heating or eating in a debt-based economy, where she should be setting the debt off with a signature and not paying, because you can't pay debt with more debt in a debt-based economy. Never wanted to speak to me, funnily enough. And, you know, that's why I see MPs. I've sat with 2 local councillors who were going for MPs in my area. I sat with one guy for 2 hours. I told him about the banking system. I told him about the council tax. We're waiting for a High Court date with council tax at the minute, Alan, because council tax, believe it or not, is a commercial property tax. It states that in Section 3 of the Local Government Finance Act. So because I don't live in a commercial property, I decided I can't just stop paying, because they're going to do all kinds to me. And I've been through a bit myself. So I went, we'll play a different game. You can keep taking me money, and we'll deal with it at a different date. But I've got to get through High Court to Supreme Court to repeal the case law that they sit on. And once that case law is repealed, then the gateway is open. But they've taken us 5 years to get there because of all the red tape. And, oh, no, you can't do. The last letter I got, you can't have this court date. You're not entitled to this court date because blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we're going to sort out a court date for you to attend and we'll let you know. So they have to give you the cognitive dissonance. They've got to give you the bollocks and the truth. And if you don't find that line where your truth is, that's how they love it. They'll drag you into the long grass and keep you there for as long as they can. That's what this legal system's all about. That's what we see with the police who... do you know what? I know good men and women who are police officers who would do everything they could to stop this. I've had an interview with a constable who told me my property was stolen.
Yeah, they're not all bad. They're not all bad.
Yeah, she's a constable. She can't do anything. And that is why little podcasts like this, of the likes of me and yourself, just having a chat, 22 people are watching now. There was 50 odd people earlier. I know the podcast Raconteurs, what I used to be on, has started as well. So I think they've taken a lot of listeners. But this will get shared on all these kind of sites. Beat the bailiffs and the banks, what I'm admin on. There's 100,000 people on there who are going to see this. They can't unhear things. They can come and tell me or tell you, Alan, that you're a corporate shill. You're paid to come and spout all this bollocks, right? John Wedger...
Where's the money? Where's the money?
Exactly. John Wedger is another paid man. I've heard it all. And even me, Alan, I work for GCHQ or MI6. I don't even know which it is anymore. But all I'm doing is...
No, I don't. What's the difference between MI5 and MI6? I fucking don't know.
One's international, one's national, apparently.
No, I mean that in a funny way.
Yeah, but exactly. But GCHQ is internet. Now, just through talking to you... I'm talking about what I talk about. They class me as a domestic terrorist, and they're passing bills. Exactly. I don't give a flying because. No. Do you know have you ever heard of Tom Crawford, Alan?
Like you said, say like this and this, like two gloves. You put them together, and it's hand in glove.
Exactly.
All of it is the same. All of it is the same. The little people are going to be down there. There's always going to be a north-south divide. There's always going to be the rich and the poor, right? Yep. And what you said, we have it was strange because we've got this COVID come out. Yeah, half the places are closed. We're in lockdown. My wife hasn't been out for fucking 10 weeks. She ain't allowed to because she's classed as one of the vulnerable people, right? Yeah. Yet my fucking council tax went up. And all the services that were supposed to be there for the fucking Joe Public are gone. Yeah. What the fuck's going on?
Mate, that's why I've got all these questions. And people 10 years ago were saying, Webby, you're a nutter. 10 years later, Webby, what do you think of this? Because you were talking about this years ago. And I just said, listen, I am not this clever and I'm not psychic to this point. I am producing that you can go and read yourself. Go and read the white papers, what they write about and say, this is what we wish we could do. Look at what the think tanks are saying. Look at what we think we could do. Now you've got, in October, November, you've got an Event 201 that is broadcast, which is a round the table situation, crisis situation, people from different departments saying, right, we've got a coronavirus outbreak. It's an epidemic. It's going mad. What are you going to do, FEMA? What are you going to do? And they're giving all these points and they're giving it all out. And I'm going, I saw this the year before 7/7, where Michael Portillo did a roundtable thing about explosions on the underground. What's going on here? It feels like I'm being primed for something. And you move this on and people... ordinary people, and I put that in speech marks, ordinary people who, they've run out of Love Island or stuff like that, they're now going, there's something not right about this. There is really something not right. And, I mean, it's been, I'm so glad that you did come on, because I was worried because I've organised interviews with child sex abuse survivors and abuse survivors before, and they always end up not coming on for one reason or another. And I get it's so difficult to talk about. And I've got to say, Alan, I'm so pleased that you're brave enough to come on and be candid and tell us what actually happened in this. And do you know what? It's like what you said. We haven't even scratched the tip of the iceberg with this. There's so much more. There's so much more that we can talk. And I hope that you'll come back on at some stage. And
you'll love to. This is the thing with Webby, though. You know, you can talk about it and you can go on and on and on about it. And like you say, we haven't scratched the surface. There's a lot of things in there that you in 2 hours you've tried to get a lifetime in, and then what you've got.
Bit like a solicitor. Like a solicitor, innit?
Well, yeah. Squeeze it into a third of a page.
Exactly.
Yeah, and charge £300 an hour for it.
Yep.
The whole system. It's like, what annoys me is like you got Lord Still is in the fucking Lords at 81, still boosting his pension money with the aid of the taxpayer, right? Knew all about Cyril Smith, yet wouldn't say anything and took money for years and years and years, and just did not say anything. It's like Brian wrote name his abuser, who was a politician. It's like Michael Tarrager, he named Ted Heath, and when they went on the yacht or the boat and the swimming pool, his bad, smelly, smoky breath, and him driving a vehicle, he never got fucking stopped for not driving without a license, and yet he was driving around in a car that he didn't even have a license for, and they used to call him Uncle Teddy.
See, this is what we need to be talking about. Yeah. Alan, would you be interested in coming on with Brian? If I can get Brian on, maybe Brian said he'll come on the show, and I can get you both on, and we can all. Yeah,
I'll tell you, me and Brian did one together, and it was brilliant because there's two victims talking together, and I know Brian, and Brian knows me. And we've got such mutual respect for each other as victims of Wigglewhack and Beecholme. He knows about my place. I know about his because we've both done research. The show we did, me and Brian, was absolutely fucking brilliant because you listen to two victims, and it's gospel.
Right,
you can't get much better than that.
I'm gonna get that organised. I'll get in touch with Brian after we finish here, because we've done. Considering when we started, Brian, we'd say, well, it normally goes for 2 hours, but let's see how it is after an hour and blah blah. We've done nearly 2.5 hours, and we haven't even scratched the surface, mate. So I've loved talking to you. I'm going to call it a day for the podcast at the minute, but please come back on. I'll get in touch with Brian, and obviously now, because I'm in quite good contact with you with Facebook, maybe get John on as well. But we'll get some kind of roundtable going on a regular basis, and hopefully get it shared out onto different podcasts. Because believe it or not, me going onto the BBC or the Sky is never going to happen. So I'm never going to get that platform. But guess what? Within 12 people, I can know everybody in the fucking world. So I'm going to.
The world suddenly becomes a smaller place.
It does. And with, like I said, with brave people like yourself who have gone through it and are willing to stand toe to toe and say, go on, then call me a liar. Don't go running off. Come and stand toe to toe and call me a liar. And these people can't. And when the tide is turning, I've never seen this kind of. I've never seen this kind of. It's not even a fight back yet, because people are still contemplating and thinking about stuff. But what gets me is you can see the contrast of people who are willing to put a mask on and drive around in their own car alone.
We will have our day, because our mass rally will get done one day. John Wedge is going to have, you've got the Sikh Alliance Society, you've got the Veteran Bikers, you've got the Melanie Shaw group, the Carol Woods group, you've got Tommy Robinson. I mean, Tommy Robinson, let's just have 2 seconds on him. He was talking about the Manchester grooming gangs 10 years ago, and everybody called him a racist.
Yeah.
I'm not totally with the Muslim thing, because like we said about coppers, there's good and bad in everybody.
Yes.
right?
I
So
agree.
there's good and
I
bad.
agree.
But he was talking about this same subject 10 years ago, and what's been done about it? That's what we
I'm
can
with you.
say.
I'm with you. And that, do you know what, Alan? That's a perfect way to end it, because from my perspective, everything that I've ever known is littered with lies. So the only thing that I truly know is how little I actually know. Everything else is left with questions. If I can't ask questions and I'm called names and beaten up, there's something wrong. If it's illegal to ask those questions, there's something even worse. So this has to start, and it's at the grassroots movement. I'm going to get my mate John in touch with you as well, because your story and his story is so similar, Alan, and he is struggling to try and get his story out. So I'm going to put John in touch with you as soon as I can.
Right,
I'll stay in touch with you, and hopefully we'll sort out a date, get in touch with Brian, but I'll be in touch with you.
no problem at all.
Again,
Thanks for having me on tonight.
from the
Really
bottom of your heart,
good. It
Alan,
went
thank you.
so well, actually. I was quite surprised.
Well, you made it so easy.
It went.
You made it so easy because you just talk from the heart. You just tell your honesty, and
Yeah, I get that from
the
Jimmy
only
the
way,
Hat, and people like that say that. Jimmy the Hat turns around and says, "You listen to Alan Merritt, it comes straight from the heart."
because well, do you know what? Like I said earlier, I don't know you. You could have an incentive, you could have an agenda. I don't know that, but it seems to me that coming from the heart and you're telling your truths, I can see that you're experiencing what you've been through at that time from other people who I deal with on a daily basis. I see those kind of similar responses. So I couldn't, if John Wedger is a shill and you're not, I couldn't blanket you both. But I only deal with people on me and you basis. And I always say, Alan, if you're a cunt, you're a cunt. It doesn't matter what colour, creed, or religion you are.
Yeah.
And it'll come out. And it will come out.
Well said.
Again,
But you hit the nail on the head earlier on when you turned around and said, if you give somebody enough rope, give somebody enough rope, right, they'll hang themselves. And when we were talking about John to start off with, you said exactly that. If John is a bad apple, give him enough rope.
Give him the rope. Give him the rope. That's what I said to John.
I've worked with John, but I ain't seen it. I ain't seen nothing.
Well,
show me.
You
something.
see, I got the shit right because I'd had John on twice, and then the Brian Harvey stuff come out, and then he was talking about Bill Maloney setting Brian Harvey up, and Brian Harvey was linked with Bill Maloney and John Wedger, and John Wedger's a shill because Bill Maloney's a shill. So all this was coming out, and I'm getting shit saying, why are you promoting John Wedger? And I'm going, I'm not promoting John Wedger. John Wedger is coming on to my show, which is a small platform, but he's talking about systematic foundation establishment child sexual abuse, satanic ritual abuse. Nobody's talking about this. If he's being paid to talk about that, somebody wants this out there. Well, do you know what? Let's get it out because we need to know about it, whether he's being paid or not. And
100%.
like I said to John, there's all your rope, John. Hang yourself or make a hammock and laugh your fucking head off at these bastards. I don't know which it is, but we need to talk about it.
It's like Gordon Reed punching me in the head as I've gone by. I've just laughed at him, and you have to do that, unfortunately. You've got to do it. It's like what we've been talking about and what we've been saying is like for 2 years I've been working with John. If some troll wants to say something about him, they're saying, what has he actually whistleblown on? It's not so much about whistleblowing. I think it's giving people that are victims a platform to speak on.
Well, do you know what gets me as well is it's very easy. I mean, you've come out and you've named names, right? And John, the biggest thing that I hear about John Wedger is he doesn't name names. His names are, no disrespect to you, Alan, but his names might be slightly more high profile than your names because of the circles he moved in and where those circles will stretch out to. Anybody who finds out that paedophiles are beating the sex offenders register by living on canal barges and then finding a paedophile ring within a ring and a ring and a ring to the point where you're knocking on Westminster, If you're being paid to come out and tell us that, there's a big agenda. And I want you to come and tell us. Get well paid, but come and tell us, because I need to know your information. If you're being paid to tell me that there's a massive cover-up of a paedophile thing, maybe the faction that wants to be in charge of our country aren't satanic paedophiles, and they want to get rid of the satanic paedophiles, but they don't want to give us everything. If you're one of those, please come and tell me, because I'll move with the times. I'll go with that. But I can only deal with people on one-to-one basis. And I've spoken with John on several occasions now. I even arranged to meet him for a coffee that never happened at the time. But, you know, I only deal with people. You, Alan, first time I've not met you physically, but it's the first time I met you visually. And I've seen you talk with honour, with integrity, and I've seen you speak from the heart. You might you might have an A in drama. You might be a great actor. I don't know, Alan. But all I can say is you're talking about information that I know to be true.
Well, give me an Oscar.
Here you are, mate. Yeah, do you know what? If my picture hadn't froze 2 hours ago, I'd have been able to show you. But do you know what? Like I said, Alan, thanks for coming on. We've done 2.5 hours. I'm definitely going to have you back on. I'll speak to Brian. And I'll be in touch with you.
Yeah, Brian's dying to come on. He's got so much respect for you.
Oh, do you know what? I'm the same, because I share a lot of information with Brian. He posts some good stuff. So I'll get in touch with Brian this week.
Very highly of you. He said that to me. He actually said to me, to be truthful, he said, "Will you mention my name to Webby tonight?" He said, "What he said, will you mention me to him?"
Yeah, I know. I've checked out Brian's stuff because of the Sunderland stuff, and
so that phone call that you're on about is long overdue.
Yes, I will sort it.
And on that note,
good night, Alan.
Another chat another time.
We certainly will, mate. Take care of yourself. I'll just I'll do no worries anytime, Alan. So that's the end of the Webster Report. Alan Merritt. Well, what can we say? He's come out. He's told us his truth. Everybody who wants to say that these people who I've spoken to, who seem to me at this point speaking from the heart, telling me things that I have already experienced from many other people who haven't got that strength yet to tell their story. You've got to give a platform. Mine's a little platform. I used other platforms to get my information out. Nobody knew that your gas, water, and electric were free, but I got on platforms, and now everybody seems to know that it's free, but they don't know what to do about it. And I get all that. But this stuff that is going on the underground, where the possibility of an actual industry of child trafficking, and this all going on, and then the satanic stuff. I don't give a flying fuck whether you believe in Satan and Satanism. These people do. And that's what you've got to differentiate. You can't keep putting you into their shoes. It's like when I said to Alan, if I walked in Alan's shoes, I would have made the same decisions as Alan did, because I would have been Alan. I can't be Paul and then say, I wouldn't have done that, Alan, you're a dickhead. I wouldn't say that to anybody, because that is the path. If you see prisoners and see some of the families, when you see the families, you look at the prisoner and you say, you never stood a chance. You just had to deal with what you had. And we've covered a heavy subject tonight without even delving. You know, we've scraped the top of the surface. We've not got into the real stuff that is really going on. But you know, we've got to start a conversation about it somewhere, and we've got to stop these fucking idiots who say you shouldn't talk to him and don't let him talk. No, you come and fucking talk to me, because if you're a dickhead, you're going to show yourself as a dickhead. So come and talk to me, because if I'm a dickhead, you'll show me up to be a dickhead. And all I want to know is the truth, and all I've got is questions. That's as much as I know. Anyway, thanks for tonight. I'm sorry my picture froze about two hours ago, but I am still here. If anybody's interested, I have got another show on Friday night. at 7:30, I'll be talking to Michael Abernathy, which is a long awaited interview. We tried to arrange for about 3 years, but Michael's had, he's had a fair bit on, I suppose you could say. And I'm looking forward to seeing where Michael is up to. I mean, the last time I spoke with Michael and saw him, it would have been, I don't know, 2014 when he did when I did a talk with him, or just after him at Ashton. And I'm looking forward to find out where he's up to and how things are working out with the mortgages. So please tune in Friday night. Thanks again. Good night from the Webster Report.